How long have you been in this space?
I first looked at Bitcoin back in 2013.
Holy
So it was a
crap.
while ago. And I read the white paper. And I have a software development background. I kind of started there before I got into other tracks. And so just the notion of what he was describing in terms of the integrity that's inherent in the design itself was fascinating to me. And in software development, we think a lot about elegance. Elegance meaning it's a very powerful, streamlined solution that's not distracted with all sorts of bells and whistles. And I was like, this is just so damn elegant. But it
Yeah.
also felt like someone, was in their basement drawing up stuff that other people would look at and say, that's cool. And I actually was like, I'll just try to buy some. And it wasn't because I thought it was going to be huge. It was because I just wanted to interact with it. And
In
and I was,
2013?
I was looking into it, and back then, and I was like trying to buy it, and I could only buy it from a company. I don't remember if it was Mount Gox or somebody else. It was just too long ago for me to remember. But I tried actually buying some, but the process had a KYC process, and 10 years ago, Skoll, kind of an idiot, was like, this is a scam. They want my bank account and they want my picture. Like, there's no way. And so I didn't buy it. And I was like, this is dumb. People are just trying to scam people. And then, years later, I'm like, oh, well, I wish I would have maybe consulted someone older and wiser than me at the time. But then I came back in like 2017 and was like, whoa, there's actually like more than Bitcoin. What's going on? And at the time, I was trading currency, Forex, as kind of to pay the bills for myself. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to hop over here. The volatility looks really enticing. And
Yeah,
so that was
well,
good, made some money. I fortunately kind of sold it at the top and got out. But I was more interested in the technology. So I really followed DCL blogger Maddie quite a bit. I was
oh, yeah.
following everything he put out, his videos. I chatted with him a good amount in Discord, and he was really focused on Decentraland. But then I started looking at other what now we know as NFTs. And at the time OpenSea was around, I remember looking at it, and I remember the same thing I thought in 2013 about Bitcoin. I'm like, what's this like wimpy site with all these weird pictures that people are paying fake money for? I'm like, this is so scammy. I'm like, I'm out of here. And so strike two on Skull, and then 2021, and Bitcoin is kind of on a run. It hits the headlines, and I was like, I should look back at that stuff, like, because I was starting to write white papers back in 2017 just for myself, just to keep my own notes. And I looked at it in 2021. I was like, holy shit! Like the stuff that we hoped might someday be built is like people are using it, and the TVLs are through the roof. I'm like, what is going on here? And I was like, what did I miss the last 2 years? And so then I kind of spent a week, and that week I dove into it, looked at as much as I possibly could from metaverses to this and that, this, that, this, that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing other stuff. And I kind of stopped doing other stuff. And I was a 12-hour a day crypto degen, like reading white papers, studying the models. Cause for me, I'm big on business models and,
Yeah.
value creation. So that was important. Then the Nifty thing kicked off, and I bought some art, and then people bought my art, and then that's kind of just how it all took off. Yeah. Then it was
People
rocket
bought
fuel.
my art?
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, man. Actually, one of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
this dude Archangel. So the first art I bought was from an artist called Soundwaves Photon. Absolutely amazing artist, amazing guy, hard worker, love the dude. And then the second piece of art I bought was from this dude Archangel, Archangel 22. Awesome guy, and he does like occult art and stuff like that. And so I bought some of his art. I didn't know much of it, right? This was before the Nifty craze was happening, in my opinion. Like it was just people were buying stuff, but it wasn't like hitting the headlines and stuff. And dude messages me, Archangel messages me and is like, you have a bid on your piece in Rarible, right? And I think I bought his art for like zero point 0.3 ETH at the time. And there was like a 3.3 ETH bid on it. And my mind was blown. I was like, what is happening, dude? And I'm like, is it cool if I accept it? Like, I don't, like you like it, right? You bought it, you love it, you respect the artist, you respect the art. At the same time, I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't know what's happening. I think I should do this so I could buy more art. And he's like,
this is
yeah,
money.
dude, cool. Because for him too, he's like, no, I get it. Plus, I get paid. He gets royalties. He's
Yeah,
like, yeah, dude, do it. Like, get it out there. Let's both move forward. So I was like, yeah, and that was the start of the journey, really.
dang, that's not a bad little up gig right there.
It was
That's
wild.
that's good. Yeah, I remember sitting down and finding the metaverse and being like, does anybody else see this? And I went into Decentraland and I was like, wait, they're selling property? Oh, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be really, really big someday. And it's just really weird. I don't think we're anywhere close to a place where that's really bound to happen yet. But I think we could really find that place to where websites are gonna be metaverse. Like the metaverse is not like put on the headset, like all of a sudden, like you and I are in the metaverse right now.
Yeah.
You're sitting somewhere completely different than where I'm sitting. We're having a genuine conversation that is bringing both of us value. And so for me, the metaverse is anywhere from a text message to like, okay, let's put on the headset and get involved. Um, but the metaverse in general is just going to be something big and to where it was art. When did you figure out that NFTs were like really non fungible, like proof of ownership, more than they were like a JPEG?
It was really back in 2017 when, by the way of DCL Blogger, I saw the Decentraland stuff. I saw the land there. And at the time, I wasn't ready to buy land. For me, it was like, oh, that's cool, but like I didn't like, get it. I saw it, but I didn't get it. And I think I might be mistaken here, and we should definitely fact check this before cutting this and putting it into your show. But I think Axie Infinity was doing its initial land sale at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember I can visually see this website. I can see it in my eye, in my mind's eye. And I think it was Axie Infinity, but they had like 3 or 4 packages, like buy this land, and then it comes with a treasure chest. And if you buy like the Arctic land, you get a better chest that is gonna give you a mystic Axie in it and all this stuff. And I think they're like $200 or $300, and I'm sitting here like, before crypto just screws with your entire spectrum of what money means. It messes everything up, right? Like right now,
Yeah,
someone's like, "Oh, buy $300 for this land of this amazing game with these amazing people building it." You'd be like, "Let's do this!" Like that's point one app. Like let's go.
three
Back
hundred
then,
bucks.
back then, I was like 300. I'm like $300, and I'm looking at my monthly budget. Like that's meaningful food budget, And so I was like, I can't do that for this silly virtual land thing. But that's when I was like, oh, it's sold out. Like, oh, people are doing this. Like, there's some real. And then I had to understand why, like, how. And then I started looking at the specs and the technology behind it and the non fungibility of it and what does non fungibility mean. So it was all there back then. For some reason, like we all get our light bulb moments at different times. And to me, it looked like a haunted house, and I didn't want to go in. you know, but if I hadn't seen that, right? If I hadn't seen that, then when I came back in 2021, I couldn't have moved from what's happening to I'm all in within 5 days, right? The reason I was able to go so quick in 2021 was because I had so much of that background that built up from the times before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And see, for me, I didn't even get into the game until Doge popped last year, last February, when GME was skyrocketing, and I was like, "What the hell's going on with this company that's worthless?" like, and that just I peered into the abyss, and I ended up just falling to the point where I just dropped everything last year, and I ended up seeing Bored Apes last May, and saying that seems scammy. But these guys you're able to on Twitter put a Bored Ape as your profile picture. And now you have 2,000 followers within the day, and I'm like, that's something, because I'm sitting here trying to get a follower to save my life on Twitter, and you can't. But now all of a sudden they're just ape follow ape, and what? And they were 3 ETH at the time, but I would have ended up in divorce court. I ended up
Yeah,
there anyway, so I probably should have bought the ape.
I could have paid for the court.
No. I could have been set. Nope. Nope. Going hard route here. So, but yeah, it's so I guess for me, I like seeing where. Did you get into punks?
I didn't. I missed the punks thing. I missed the apes thing, and I'll back up a step here too. So, some of these things they can be painful to think about, right? Like you're talking about, you're like, hey, I had that Bored Ape thing there. I remember looking at apes and thinking about minting, and I'm trying to make sense of all the things happening in crypto. And for whatever reason, it felt to me at the time like other things were further along, right? Same
Oh,
thing, same
totally.
dumb skull. I didn't get it, right? And so some of those things can be painful, like you say, buying things, selling things, and this and that. And so I try to take a sort of a bit of a more. I don't want to go all the way to like a philosophical or spiritual approach, but that's usually
Oh,
where
go
kind of
there.
my thought processes come from.
Totally go
And for
there.
me, it's like, all right, so we're going from where we are to somewhere we're going to be, right? And we don't know where we're going to be. We just know it's different from where we are, right? And then we can fight with ourselves in our minds as to whether we think where we're going to be is better or worse than where we are, whether it's going forward or going backward. And these are all really just kind of distractions to actually living a really cool life, right? So so I look at that and go, if I'm wherever I am and I'm going wherever I'm going to go, the best I can do is the best I can do. And that's kind of trying to make sense of what's there, try to meet really cool people. And look, if we hook onto some really big fish, right? And we get into some really cool projects, awesome. Awesome. If not, it's still beautiful scenery, right? Still beautiful scenery. So
Totally.
like that said, I don't think I even had a line in the water when the CryptoPunk fish swam by. Like I really didn't, you know.
I didn't either.
And I think the first exposure I had to CryptoPunks was probably IMDC Investors Twitter profile. And then I met our buddy Flashwrecked. And Flashwrecked himself has been a life changer for me. Lots of people that you and I chat with have been life changers for me. And I would love to at some point list them all out. And if it makes the cut on your show, I would love that. But Flashwrecked is one. And at the time, I think CryptoPunks were, and I don't want to get too much into pricing and speculation and making and losing money because it's just like we talk about it so much, it kind of gets whatever. But at the time, I think they were 20K or something, and I was, I still hadn't had that offer on my Archangel 2, so I didn't even have the 3eth, right? Like there's no way.
Right.
It was so out of reach. It was
Yeah.
so pipe dreamy for me to even think about a punk at the time, and so I missed that wave, and then you get to the point where things are a little bit higher in value, and then you're like, ooh, do I allocate funds to it or not? And then you make some good calls and you make some bad calls, but that's another one that I definitely did not. I didn't have the line in the water, you know.
Shoot, I wasn't even in the wheelhouse when punks were like even close to available. By the time I really understood what a punk was, they were the price of a house.
Yeah.
Like they were 80, 90 grand. They were well beyond anything that I would be able to get my hands on at that time. I
Yeah.
remember looking at MFers and they were like point 0.1, point 0.2 ETH, and I was like, these fucking things are gonna be huge. Satoshi's just a cool dude. Like all of his stuff online, like following him from like pretty much day one, like Satoshi's just a really cool guy. And like when he came out with this project, and you saw all of his memes about "Are you winning, son?" and it's like, oh god, they're just good. And so yeah, those I missed too. I totally missed that whole bandwagon. I was mad
Dude,
at
the
myself.
MFers thing for me, I was like, with all the PFP things, it's kind of interesting because people get introduced to PFPs. First, you go, does it make sense or not? And then you go, do I want to participate or not? And then you go, how do I want to participate? And then for what purposes am I participating? And the initial chapter for me, and I think for a lot of others, was either trying to maybe flex or maybe trying to join a group of people. Some of the normal social pressures that we feel in real life too, we start to feel online. And when you start to see these identity driven things, it's human nature to kind of play it out the same way online as we do in person, I think. And MFers honestly just gave me so much peace because when I saw like the one there, I was like, it's basically me, dude. Like since the mid 90s, I've been slouching on my chair in front of a computer. And in the mid 90s, I was too young to be smoking weed. So that didn't happen until
No.
the late 90s, right?
Yeah,
But
brother.
I was like, dude, that's me. Except for the only issue I had was it looks like a cigarette kind of. And I don't
Yeah.
smoke cigarettes. I never have. And I'm like, well, I could call it a vape, but I don't vape either. I was like, but that's squiggly if I turn it on its side. Like, that's pretty
Oh
cool.
God, the squiggle,
But it's
dude.
basically, I found a PFP that I felt basically represented my personality.
What was your first NFT? Was it a mint or was it a buy?
My first one was a Soundwaves Photon piece of art from the 100 Mountains collection.
Okay.
And, it was really interesting for me because I had decided, I'm like, I'm going in on this crypto stuff, right? And at the time, art was really big. And regardless of the financial aspect of any of it, it was really fucking cool just connecting with artists and being an art collector. It's still,
Yeah.
other than like, I love technology and I love value creation to improve the human condition. Like, that's where my heart and soul really are. But connecting with artists is amazing, and I've gotten to become friends with some artists, and it's just amazing. But that first one that I bought from Soundwave Photon, I was like scrolling through Twitter because I was brand new to the space, and I didn't know what to do. So you just follow people on Twitter. What else do you do to
Yeah.
start, right?
Yep.
Came across this dude. I'm like, he's auctioning off his art. That's kind of cool. And I'm like, I like art. I love mountains, right? I'm about to head to Montana for 2 weeks with my wife just to go look at mountains. Mountains
Hell yeah.
represent something, right? They represent
I live
something.
in Utah. I hear you.
Oh, amazing, dude. And so I was like, these mountains are amazing. And I loved how they were like a collection. It was like designed, it was intentional, and they all worked together, and it was pretty neat. And he was auctioning it on Twitter, and I absolutely was like, I have to have one. The FOMO kicked in. I have to have one. And I remember I was driving, and this one was going up. I was like, I like that one. I like the colors. I like the shape. I like the geometry. I like that one. And I was driving, and I'm checking it on Twitter. And my wife's in the passenger seat. She's like, "Why are you checking your phone?" I don't know. Why are you checking your phone? I don't know. And I'm like, bid. And I bid and I won it. And I was so
I
happy.
gotta stop this.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know until I got home if I won it or not because I couldn't, like, you can't check your phone constantly when you're driving, And I got home and I'm like, I won it. I'm like, damn, yeah, dude. And then he had like this printed poster where you use a phone app to point your phone at the poster and then it has some augmented reality. So it's animated and
Oh,
has sound on it. So I was like, yeah, pretty cool. That was my first NFT.
stepping away from NFTs, like, what are some of your like favorite tokens? Aside from Bitcoin being maybe a store of value, if you don't maybe mind getting into like, what are some of your like favorite like other L1s or favorite DeFi projects maybe that you've really gotten into that you've been able to succeed with?
Yeah, I think if it's okay, what I'd like to do is just kind of speak more conceptually about it.
Yeah.
I I kind of try to stay away from making calls, right? Or saying, "Hey, this is the one," or something like that. And that's really for a couple of reasons. One is I don't like getting into sort of emotional or loyalty driven debates and arguments. Also, like sometimes people rely on other people's information. And I don't think people rely on my information very much. I'm not a big influencer or nothing, but I'd hate for like to say something and then someone goes and buys it and then they lose money. I just
Oh,
don't want to have that impact
none of this is financial advice ever. Like
ever, ever.
that's the last thing anything I talk about is financial advice. I can't even take care of myself. Don't listen to me.
For,
Like,
for sure. But I think like it's interesting to try to, on that notion of kind of being on this journey and if we get to the top of the mountain we do or if we catch big fish we do, it's sort of like,
yep.
all right, then how do you position yourself to catch bigger fish more often, right? How do you position yourself or build your muscle so that you have a better chance at getting to the top of the mountain. So that part's really interesting for me. It makes a little more sense, and I think a professional sports bettor would probably say this the same way. There's going to be good teams, bad teams, right? There's going to be good tokens, bad tokens. And each of those tokens is going to be priced against the market, just like a sports team is going to have odds against the market. What you're really looking for is you're looking for deviations in their perceived value or market value compared to their real value, their fundamental value. And then you're looking at that same sort of disconnect between their current perceived or real value and their future potential real value, right? And if you can find these disconnects, that's where you want to start to place bets. And if we're talking about placing bets, we're talking about placing a basket of bets, not an individual bet, right? There is an aspect of YOLO, right? Like, I'm all in on this token because if I'm right, it changes my life, right?
Right.
What we also have to accept is if I'm wrong about this token, that also changes my life,
Yeah.
right? Now, if I'm looking at a life-changing decision, do I want to bet on one team out of 32 in the NFL? Or do I want to pick maybe 5 or 7, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe my 10 or 15x looks more like a 3 or 4x. But if I have a significantly higher likelihood of getting that, I think, for some people that's the play, and for me that's the play.
That seems well more like the play than a YOLO, especially when you're talking about something as volatile as crypto.
Yeah,
'Cause
and don't get
it
me wrong,
is.
I YOLO too. Like, I definitely YOLO. The important part I think is to sort of isolate the YOLO from the big basket, right? Like, what percentage of your portfolio is the YOLO part of your portfolio?
Right.
Because even sports bettors like to play blackjack, right? Like,
Yeah.
even professional investors like to, bet on Brady in the Super Bowl. So I think that itch needs to be scratched, but you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah. You don't want to place it all on, Tom Brady, who already retired. Poor guy.
Right.
That was the other thing. Was it you and Ryan that started the Discord?
Yeah, Ryan, aka Ringles, is the first person I met in crypto that I didn't know IRL. So there's 2 people in that Discord that I know in real life. And we started the Discord just because we felt it was better than trying to text each other, especially because one of them lives internationally, right? So
Oh wow.
there's a guy, so Chiss in there.
Oh
Chiss
yeah.
is in there. He's my guy. I met him traveling in Vietnam years ago, and we've been the best of friends since. Amazing connection. He and his fiance, our wife now, are amazing. And then there's also in there new kid on the blockchain. He was my college roommate. He was the best man at my wedding. My best friend for a very, very long time. So it was the 3 of us. We're like, let's just go into Discord. It's just going to be easier. And so we did
Yeah.
that. And then I think I started collecting Panini digital blockchain cards because I was like, "Ooh, this is like a known brand. They're on the blockchain. Like, they're going to be the first ones that are licensed sports." I was like, "I'm gonna buy these." And then I put out a couple tweets, and dude DMs me, asks me a couple questions. The next thing you know, we're like, "Oh man, this is cool." Kind of the way I've met a lot of people. You start with a little
Yeah.
conversation, and then there's a little bit of trust building. You get to know kind of the spirit and the heart and the intentions of that person. And for me, like, people being forthright with integrity is important. I
Yeah.
think when people aren't forthright, it makes it difficult because you don't know if they're withholding something or whatever. And Ringles was everything. So I'm like, dude, you got to check in this Discord. I'd love to just chat with you all day, every day. And so yeah, Ringles was the first sort of non-IRL guy that popped in.
He's a Chad. I met him in New York, and he was one of the most solid human beings I'd ever met in my life. Never mind the fact that just being able to be in a space that is full of so many people that you feel maybe aren't. And so for me, when I met him, it was really one of those moments of like, okay, there are some some more than rock solid people in this space, and this is one of them. And the entire Discord is just full of people that have really been able to teach me how to do research, right?
Yeah, it's been
Teach me
amazing.
how to look at things differently than I was before. As far as crypto goes, what does your day to day look like? Like when you wake up, you have coffee, or like do you the first thing you do check the charts? How does that look for you?
It's changed over time, and it kind of changed with the market cycle, a little bit. So when I first was looking, my what I was doing was I was primarily trading, forex, and forex trading for me was like a 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekday thing. That's kind of when there's market volatility because
Oh
the
wow.
the New York market and the London market overlap for 2 or 3 hours there. And so that's when you get some decent volatility. And outside of that, it's kind of slow if you're day trading anyway. So
Mm,
I would be like, I was a 6 o'clock dude. I really love getting up before the sun is up and sitting outside and hearing the silence and then hearing the birds start to wake up and chirp. To me, it was such a beautiful thing. And then I'd have coffee and spend a couple hours kind of reading and doing light exercising just to get blood flowing and this type of stuff. And then I would trade 8 to 10, and then after 10 I'd probably go for a walk with my wife, and then I would start to research crypto, right? And that's how it was for a week. And then after a week, I was like, fuck, what the fuck? Like, I gotta go now. Like, I can't be doing 2 hours a day. I'm like, I'm going now. So then I'm like, all right, what do I gotta do? Coinbase. Okay, I gotta get money into Coinbase. How do I interact? MetaMask. Okay, and I was just like frantic, right? I was like, I gotta go now. And then it
yeah.
wasn't within a week or two, and I was probably 12 hours a day just on it. I was either reading or chatting or scrolling Twitter or trying something, doing something, right? And so that consumed me. It started out intentional, and then it probably ran away a little more than I would have liked. But for like the year of 2021, I mean, it was 12, 14 hours a day, right? And
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
other stuff. I always advise startups from time to time. I take consulting gigs to help out people that I know that are in my industry, which is all e-commerce for the last 25 years. And so there were some pockets of that. But then what ended up happening is I was up so late, I wasn't getting up in the morning anymore. And so I kind of lost that morning routine, which was really stabilizing for me. And
Yeah.
then I started to kind of go, okay, my energy is draining, right? Like my routine changed and my energy was draining. And so then the market started to slow down earlier, this year, first half of
Yeah.
2022. And then I kind of stepped away and was like, whew, I need time to breathe. And so I kind of just stepped away from it all for a couple months, few months. I intended to last year, didn't get to it, so I did it this year. And then I got back to it pretty heavy a few months ago. And kind of what I decided was I recognize there's really kind of two crypto markets going on right now. I started to pay attention, like obviously what we look at in crypto is like this whole crypto thing is, we all have the optimism that it's going to be huge, and we all look and go, when are big companies going to come on board, right? When is consumer mass adoption coming on board? And when market's slower, so I'm not like 10 hours a day hammering the market anymore. And I started reaching out to my network, right? My professional network, I should
Oh.
say, and started talking to people and, seeing kind of where they're at. And it's really kind of this interesting mix because in the corporate world, in the enterprise world, even in the startup world, people are really fucking busy. They're like, they got jobs and families. They're really busy. And all they can do is read the headlines. And you and I both know that the headlines are not representative of what's happening, right? I mean, they're kind of a representation, but it's like seeing a leaf and it trying to explain the forest. It's not happening, right?
Yeah.
But so they're like, some of them might be like, oh, looks like it's all crashing. I'm like, I don't care about the price of Bitcoin. Honestly, there's more going on than that, right?
Yeah.
And some would be like, well, it's like, looks like it's like 5 years out before it means anything. I'm like, it's 5 years out until it's today. Like, you're going to sleep on it and it's going to wake up and you're going to be behind. But then some are paying attention. There's more paying attention than we think, right? And there's more activity on that side of the market than we think. So then I started to go, oh, okay. So there's sort of these three markets. There's what we see as sort of this decentralized future that we all live in the ETH world and stuff like that. There's a completely separate enterprise blockchain world forming, right? Where they could give a shit about our market, but they like the technology and the concepts and the capabilities. But then there's this other third market, which is fascinating to me, which is the handshake in between, right? Kind of the enterprises moving into the world that we're in. We kind of see it like the Gucci's and the Nikes, but that's not really it. That's marketing. That's not real integration, okay? And then we
Right.
also see like the world that we're in, the ETH world and the L1 world, trying to figure out how to go into that enterprise world. And there's sort of this interesting brackish water, right, where the Mississippi River meets the Gulf of Mexico, and it's interesting to see how that stuff kind of happens there. So that has affected how my days go, right? And I've
Right.
kind of made the decision that I want to position sort of myself and my portfolio to be able to see the river, the salt water, and the brackish water in between, have some opportunity to benefit, from all of those different parts of that spectrum. And if and when a time comes in the future to lean heavier into, one or the other or whatever that mix kind of looks like. So that's caused me to change my day a little bit where it's no longer 12 hours a day, Twitter, Discord, MetaMask, right? It's probably maybe 4 or 5 hours of each, right? Like some time in Discord, MetaMask, Twitter, but also more phone calls with people throughout the world, lawyers, funds, entrepreneurs, businesses, agencies, strategies, and really spending time in both of those worlds. So my day has changed a little bit in that I have more phone calls mixed in with a different ecosystem of players.
Yeah, just really taking the step back to understand the, the bigger global concepts of everything rather than just being like price go up, let's make some money. Do you have a favorite cryptocurrency? Is it like Ethereum or Bitcoin or do you have a favorite layer one or a favorite network that you enjoy trading on? Are you an L2 guy? Do you like Optimism or Arbitrum? Just as far as like for people that like for me, I'm it's weird. I got priced off of Ethereum, but still played there, and now I'm actually trying to find myself like a place of like I don't really trade, but like as far as layer ones go, do you have like you don't have to place a bet here, and it's not financial advice if you do, but do you have like a movement forward for where you see maybe the rails heading in the next 1, 5, 10 years?
Bro, my activity is fucking everywhere. I'm like, oh my god,
Oh
I got
yes.
I got so many steel wallets over here. They're just stacked up, dude. It's everywhere. But I think I don't think I have unique insight outside of the common themes, and so like obviously Ethereum is kind of the one, right? I mean, in my opinion, I think most people would agree that right now, at this point in time, when you look at the combination of adoption, decentralization, network security, you look at the developer activity, you look at the potential for institutional interest. When you look at all of that, I don't think anyone can dispute that ETH is the one right now at this point in time. Aside from that, Bitcoin has an advantage because it is the granddaddy, and the bigger the institutions are, the more likely they are to want the granddaddy and not worry about all of the disputes and all that type of stuff below. And the fact that right now it kind of doesn't do anything actually protects it from regulation. And we're even hearing that from multiple kind of governmental authorities that it is the most likely to be a commodity, even though we don't quite know how it's going to play out. So, those are naturally
Yeah.
the two. But But for me, it's more like from an investment perspective, I want a basket that's mixed, right, of all different types of asset classes, so to speak, even though it's all sort of the same asset class. But if we kind of break it down, we can look at them different. And L2s are different than L1s, and all the L1s are different than F. And then you have all these different things. So I like to be all over it. But also, it's hard for me to only read to keep up. I have to do stuff. And when I do stuff, I see things. So it's important for me to do things all over the place. So I see a lot of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I have a good amount of activity on Solana, on Tezos, on even Metis, Arbitrum, Starkware, Starknet's looking really cool. We could list them all, right? And I'm probably on most of them. Constellation is interesting. They have some ups and downs. They have maybe some inconsistency in some of the activity, but they also have a formal relationship with the Department of Defense. That shouldn't be understated. So yeah, I like kind of having hands all over the place.
Yeah. Did you end up getting the wrecked airdrop from EVOS, or it's EVMOS, EVMOS?
I
It
don't
was
think
it was
so.
for
No.
the REKT, or REKT. It reminds me of Flash actually. So
Yeah.
but it was like this, yeah, and it's this entirely new chain. It's a top 100 token. It's got like 600 billion total locked value right now, and I'm not I'm trying to figure out what what it's doing there, because I'm like, it's not a bad chain. It's inexpensive is an understatement. But it's like we're dealing with so many networks at this point. Like I'm not sure people really even understand what a layer one or layer two is at this point. And
Well,
that's
here's
where I'm
what
like, we got to be early.
it's pretty early. Yeah, here's what I do think is really important. So like, obviously the underlying technology is essential for long-term enduring viability. That said, I have 25 years of being a technologist, and it's hard as shit for me to look at different chains and try to determine which technology is better. Unless I have 5 or 7 thousand hours of developing and architecting with the code base, I don't feel like I have enough information to judge its technological viability. All right. So if people are looking and reading white papers and talking to people and making decisions on which technology is better, I don't say I discount their opinion, but I have a hard time kind of placing a bet because of it. All right. So then what people tend to do is they tend to look at these reports and metrics, right? Transactional throughput and all this type of stuff. Well, okay, I totally get that, right? I want a technology that has more throughput and faster response time than the other. But what we also know is like I compare it to the 4 minute mile, right? Nobody in the history of time could run a mile in 4 minutes. One dude did it, and then tons of people started doing it. There's a psychological barrier that gets broken for all of humanity when one person breaks it. There's plenty of evidence that that's how it plays out. But technologically, it's not that much different. We've seen this through time with the internet,
That's
right? And the
totally
internet is where
true.
I've lived since the mid 90s. And someone came out with this modem that instead of being 14.4 kilobytes a second could go 28.8 kilobytes a second, right? Today's
That's
internet would look at
insane.
that and be like, you dumbasses, what were you even doing on the internet? It took you 18 minutes to download a picture of Michael Jordan, you dumbasses. But that's what it was.
So
And
true,
it's,
and it was not. It was like 360p.
yeah, you don't even get his shoes because you're like, I see the picture. I don't even need to see the shoes anymore. Okay. It was so bad. But then,
That
like,
was
once
so
someone
bad.
did it, everybody's like, oh, how did they do that? They did it. And then they can catch up. So when I look at these metrics, I assume that now that they've done it, right? We look at metaverses. This metaverse has technology that can get X thousand people into one scene at one time. That's groundbreaking. It is groundbreaking. It's
It
fascinating.
is.
It does speak to the capability of that team. Absolutely. And I bet within a few months, you're going to see a bunch of others reach that same benchmark. Not to mention, when you do technological performance tests, you choose the ecosystem, you choose the environment you're doing that in. I can run that
Yeah.
test in an optimal environment, or I can do it in the wild, right? And when I do it in the
Ugh.
wild, I'm not really doing it in the wild. Look, I've overseen large scale enterprise technological launches, and I've seen several dozen of them, maybe 100 or so. And I can tell you, you can do all of the tests you want to prepare for launching your site to millions of users, and your testing is going to be inadequate because you cannot predict the behavior of all of these randoms millions of people using your site and how all of them do it different, how that makes your system interact with itself in a myriad of ways. You cannot test adequately for that. So I don't really care if someone has a test environment and then they say, this is what our technology can do, how fast it is, and how many people it can handle, unless I see it in the wild or a test that I can scrutinize all of the test parameters. So long-winded way of me saying, I really don't know how to evaluate which chain is better technologically. All right, now here's where we can go. We can
I
look
don't either
at
now.
ecosystem building, right? And can look at stakeholder adoption. And I think there's 3 places to look for that. One is developer activity, one is partnership ecosystem, and one is consumers, end users. Not us degen speculative users because we're trying to get enough transactions so we qualify for an airdrop. I'm talking about real people using it as customers, not as speculators or investors. And now you start to see some chains start to pop out, right? You might see like a Near protocol, or you might see a Cosmos showing really high volumes of developer activity. Okay, that's a good thing because the technologists like it. Maybe it's because they're getting funding grants, right? But they're also banking their future on it, right? So they like it enough. You look at Polygon, for example, who's doing a fantastic job at business development, getting people to use their platform. Flow as well. Flow just landed Ticketmaster, right? That's no
No.
joke. They just
Are
landed
you kidding?
Ticketmaster. Yeah, no
Dude,
joke, dude. And then, so you look at some of that stuff, and then you pile on, sort of try to make sense of the end users. A report just came out that 40% of on-chain gamified transactions are bots. So you have to be able to cut through some of the noise to really see the signal as to where the real end users are. So that's a little bit harder one to look at. But if you look at those 3 key metrics and you give a little bit more emphasis to ecosystem building and to the partnership network building and then to developer activity, I think that can help guide some of the bets. But then if you
wow.
go early, then you can play some more speculative bets too. If you can look at ones, if you can make the pick like, oh dang, this platform doesn't have the developer activity or the partnership build, but for reasons X, Y, and Z, I think they will. That's a higher risk, higher reward play. So I wouldn't shy away from those. But the question is, how can you get good at knowing that? And if you don't know if you're good at knowing it, then go to that more reliable layer of KPIs, which we just talked about.
You just blew my fucking mind, Skull. Just now thinking about if Ticketmaster uses Flow, people are gonna start using Flow that don't even know they're using fucking Flow.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's really the ticket. You have user network and end users that don't know they're even using different rails than what they're using now. Because technically it is all the same rails. You until you understand what a network really is and what the value of a network really is, it's all just fucking internet.
Here's the perspective I think we would benefit from taking. Let's say we go to the horse track and we're watching horse races. And after the first 10 seconds of the race, which horse is out in front? Which horse is in second? Which horse is in 8th, 9th, 12th? And then close your eyes, let the race finish, and figure out if they ended up in the same place they were in at the beginning. And then if you run 100 races, right? Go every day and watch 10 races for 10 days, you have 100 races. How many times did those horses finish in the position that they started? Sometimes they did, and a lot of times they didn't. But then you start to look at, okay, why the hell is that? Well, they're built different, right? Like, I'm not a horse race expert by any means, and I don't know much about how jockeys do their thing, but I would bet there's something to do with like some horses, the way their endurance is by training or by nature, they're better at pacing themselves and kicking it in at the end, which means they're going to be behind for the first half of the race and win at the end. Some are like shooting stars. They're going to burst out the gates. And then they're probably hoping that they psychologically affect the other horses that feel like they're so far behind. Why should I even try? There's all these different reasons, right? So then if that's how you start to place good bets, is you start to understand these reasons. But I think more generally, and I think what's really easy to grab onto is to go, if we look at all these L1s and L2s, they're running this decade-long race or 2-decade-long race. Each of them are going to speed up and slow down in our perception at different points of that race. And I'm not saying how to make decisions within that, but just recognize it. Just recognize it. Like, don't be like, these guys are out in front, they're going to win forever. These guys are behind, they suck, they're going to lose forever. Just let go of that. Let go of that, and just recognize that it's all going to shift and move, and to try to be nimble with it.
Amazing. That changes my whole perspective on how I even look at tokens that I've been looking at for a year now. I'm like, holy shit. Like, and it gives me more conviction in some that I already had conviction in, and less than others, man. That is rock solid advice from somebody that definitely sees things differently, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to have this conversation.
I'm pretty interested in like these sports licensed sports collectible NFTs. Like Panini's been good. I know like Top Shots and all day have like they spiked and came down and stuff like that. So there's always a speculative froth you got to watch out for. But you know what I think of is like while the speculative froth goes up, down, up, down, up, down, there's also a solid floor being built for good projects, right?
100%.
And that solid floor slowly goes up, even if you can't see it because the froth is hiding it, right? Yeah. There's a base building, and to me, licensed sports collectibles have a natural floor. There's already an audience. There's already collectors, you know, and the collectors we're starting to see actually in Panini digital blockchain world. We're just now starting to see the physical card collectors, some of the big guys, you know, the big collectors are starting to pay attention.
No way.
To say, hey, I'm looking over there, and whether they're buying or not, they're starting to talk about it. And Panini's been at it since like early 2020. You know, they've been at it, you know, and it's starting to build. I think the Top Shots thing was a little different in that it brought speculators to play, right? Like in Panini, it wasn't speculators. It was collectors, straight up collectors. Like most people who are speculating are like private blockchain and not on ETH, and they're like, they wouldn't speculate on it, which is fine, right? Like my Panini portfolio is up 3x from a year and a half ago, and I'm fine with that, right? Slow build. And I think Top Shots will still have that happen. Like NBA hasn't really marketed it. NFL all day, they have not marketed it. They're still very much in alpha. Just we speculators are fucking around with it, you know, while they're in alpha. And I think we'll still have speculative waves in those. So it's very, very dicey, you know, to try to make money on it. But I think if you're on a 5 or 10 year horizon, you collect them. You know, I'm collecting those things on a 5, 10, probably 20, 30 year horizon. The baseball cards I collected in the 80s, I still haven't sold. So I'm probably on a 30 year horizon. But it's also important to buy the right stuff. You know, like right now you can get into, like when I went into Panini Digital, the first thing I looked at, I was like, all right, their first year of cards in production were 2019. I'm like, all right, those are the first year ever produced. There's value in that can't go away. Yeah. Also, there are some players who in 2019 is their rookie year. And we know in sports cards, rookie cards are the most sought after cards. They're the most desirable cards. So you could actually get rookie cards that are the first year licensed Nifty collectibles ever existed from a reputable, long-standing global brand. 2019 Panini Digital rookie cards were my target. I've never said that out loud because I don't want other people to give a shit. To be like, I just want to collect them. I just want to buy them with other people not knowing.
Now.
But
Jesus Christ, go get the ones that you wanted at least before everyone's like, wait, Panini's making cards?
Oh, I did, dude. I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said this yet.
You're
But
like,
then,
wait,
but
I
then
gotta
like
go buy these. I'm
2020.
having an issue right now. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Technical malfunction. And I think the same thing for NFL All Day and NFL and NBA Top Shots. I think like for me it was grab some LeBron James Series 1s. Why speculate on other people trying to get a good career? I do some of that too. I grab some LaMelo Ball, grab some of this because they might have huge careers. But a lot of people, a lot have great starts and then they kind of fizzle out or whatever. So grab the good ones.
Yeah.
But there's like in 5 years, how are you going to get a hold of a first year run rookie card of a star? In 5-10 years, you can't. They're going to be no one's going to sell them.
That's where I think digital has huge output over, especially with like a Panini or something, because you have a collection of 1980s baseball cards. Who the fuck sees those? Mm-hmm. Who even knows you own those? You don't tell anybody because they're gonna fucking come into your house and take them.
Oh, I agree totally. People were telling me
So
like
it's
no one's
like-
going to buy digital cards because they want to hold the physical in their hand. I was like, you think the fucking Michael Jordan rookie card is sitting on someone's shelf? No, UV damage is going to erode their value. That motherfucker is locked in a safe, and they probably schedule 10 minutes every 6 months to go open the safe and look at it and then close it real quick.
Yeah.
Like it being physical doesn't hold, I
Hurts
think,
it.
much value other than there's a psychological link that if it's physical, it's real. That's a psychological link. That's not a real link. As more people start to understand a digital thing with provenance is just as real, but is not prone to degradation and loss, then your mind shifts completely.
Well, I think it's almost more real now too, because like I can go anywhere in the fucking world and prove that ownership and show it like anywhere in the world. Like you can go into Asia right now and be like, I have a Michael Jordan rookie card, and they'll be like, who the fuck cares? Like,
Totally. I'll tell you this, like even the physical cards are gonna I think the shift we're talking about is all it needs is attention and a little bit of sort of being embraced by the influencers in the physical card space, and it's going to shift pretty quick. So there's a company, I forget the name of it. Well, there's several companies who are using Nifties to tether to physical products.
see, that's
Right.
where I'm like, that's the
Now,
thing.
there's one within the sports card world. And I forget the name of it, but there's one in particular. They actually have built some AI to grade physical cards. And they're not like prestigious, so you wouldn't have them grade your card instead of one of the standard grading companies at all. But what they're doing is like, all right, mail your card to us. Our system grades it, and then we store it. So we're going to store it in a safe, so you can sell the Nifty that's tethered to it, so you don't have to ship the physical thing around, and it's graded. Just one example of a company, but when people start doing that, they're like, yeah, I don't want to keep this shit in my basement where I could lose it. I don't want to put it in a safety deposit box where I have to go get it to sell it. I don't want to deal with all that. Just Niftify it. Well, as more people experience that and personally experience Niftifying their physical thing, then yeah, it's
the
going to
only
feel
way to do
real
it.
to them. The psychological barrier is broken.
Is Niftified like with them? Can you make your card into a Nifty, right, and then sell that Nifty, and then the person who buys that Nifty actually get that physical card?
So the company's not called Niftified. I'm using that as like a general term, like a verb,
Is anyone
not a
doing that?
company name. Yeah. There's companies doing this, and they're doing it all across. They're doing it for shoes. They're doing it for cards. Yeah, it's like people are so far ahead.
Shoes?
Yeah, right. Like, why let it sit in your?
Shoes. Oh fuck! Why? If you own a pair of shoes and you're not wearing them, fuck you. I'm not there. I said it.
They're collectibles. They're collectibles. But yeah, if you own the Nifty, basically you can use the Nifty to redeem it for the physical if you want to. So that
you
Nifty
could.
could trade 100 times, and the card is never going to leave from that warehouse. And then if someone buys it's like, oh, I actually want the physical card, they can just burn the Nifty and get the physical card back.
Holy shit! So you've increased the value of your cards now, like quite literally, because of the fact that the market has just like expanded exponentially.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you're not going to all these like one-off freaking card shows anymore to buy like rare baseball cards when like these guys could take their entire collections from traveling around the country with huge liability and just say, here, you store that. And now we have the Fort Knox of baseball cards, but the value is now exchangeable, and now we've actually created that value.
Yeah, you create accessibility for it, right? Like I could definitely see people being out at nightclubs in New York at 3 a.m. drunk and high, having a good time with their buddies, drinking champagne, doing whatever, pulling up these cards and being like, let's fucking shop. Let's fucking shop. It's going to be, because right now you can't do that, but when it's all on your phone, you can do it, right?
Right, when you actually have access to that physical thing and be like, yeah, I own that card. Do you want to buy? You want to buy it right now? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it becomes this. You would never sell a Michael Jordan rookie card to anyone, just for the sheer because then you're getting lawyers involved. Whereas with this,
Hmm.
you're this is where cryptocurrencies become very dangerous to entire industries of people because they're not needed anymore. Like, I don't need a lawyer to come with me to talk to your lawyer to buy some really expensive piece of fucking whatever it is. And the lawyers are like, you want to buy what for how
Hmm.
much? But it
Yeah,
doesn't
it
matter
changes
to you.
everything.
That really changes the whole fucking game. And
Hmm.
we haven't even begun to see that. Other than with Top Shots, but that was such a blow off top. And honestly, I don't. Is there ownership in a Top Shot? Like actual ownership of that clip? Because with a card, I can
No,
understand it. Like a tethered ownership, I understand. But these Top Shot things were way over my head because I was like, ESPN still owns that shit.
yeah,
Like,
I think we can confuse ourselves sometimes. Like if we look at the bell curve, right? Like 50 IQ, 200 IQ, and then like the middle ground. Like we do that stuff so much because like if people overthink Top Shots, they're gonna compare it to like FL1 on chain NFTs, right? Because if you go to like autoglyphs, you're like, I'm on chain, I own this, no one can take it, it's real, it's legit as fuck, nothing you can do about it. Then they'll look at a video and be like, well, that video is stored somewhere else. Even if it's an IPFS, it's still somewhere else, right? And then you go, well, you don't actually have license to the video. Like I can't charge AT&T to use my Anthony Edwards dunk video. Like I can't do that.
yes!
Like, so then people start to go, is it really even a thing? And then I would be like, does it matter? I mean, let me reframe that. It matters in certain contexts. It doesn't matter in other contexts. For autoglyphs, absolutely, it super fucking matters. That
That's it.
provenance on chain is insane, and it's a new generation of art collection. It's absolutely brilliant. When you go to NBA Top Shots, you're comparing to a physical printed cardboard picture of Shaquille O'Neal. That doesn't mean I own Shaquille O'Neal's licensing rights. It means I own a card that I get to look at that someone else might want to get a look at. And there's only a limited number of them. Completely different ball game, right? So you don't own the video, you don't own licensing rights to the video, but I don't. In that context, I don't think it matters as long as no one can
Wow.
steal it from me.
And that's the thing is that's all that matters to me. Like your fucking squiggle there.
Hmm.
Like those were what actually taught me what ownership and what it really meant to be like generative art and like what the provenance of a squiggle really is completely understated in today's realm of NFTs.
And it depends.
Completely.
So the context is so important. Like, in let's look at art for example. And I'm not a art genius or something, right? But if we look back at art and we go, there's certain art that's worth a bunch of money. An original Van Gogh or something, right? Maybe is worth a ton of money. And a poster of that same Van Gogh isn't worth much money, right? I think that's fair to say. Well, then I would ask like, which market makes more money? The market, what's the total market volume sold per year of original Van Gogh art or, old art versus reprints for $5 that people can put on their wall in a $200 frame? I don't know the answer. I'm not saying one is worth more than the other, but what I'm saying is there's a whole bunch of money spent on both. If we go to houses and we go, how many houses have art on the wall? A lot. I see two on your wall right now, right? A lot of houses have
That's my
art on
Eve
the wall.
Falcon right there.
I love it. I noticed it
That's
right away. And then if we go look across all those houses that have art on the wall and we go, how many of those collectors care that they own the original? It's a small percent, probably small single digits, right?
only if you
That
own an original.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean that either one is better or worse or anything like that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is context matters. And when
Yeah.
we look at like nifty stuff, there's going to be a market for on chain art. And I think it will be tremendous and huge. That's why I buy it, right? And because I like it and appreciate it. But I also think when it's not on chain, there's a huge market for that too. And I'm also going to buy that.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. There is a huge market for things that are off chain, and you. It's weird. You get this maxi thing with these on chain, like the squiggle maxis and like the autoglyph maxis and stuff like that, or you get like these other guys where it's like, where does the IPFS live? I think that's a question a lot of people don't have at all with NFTs, and
Yeah.
it, like especially if you're spending anything more than $50, you should know where that thing lives,
Yeah. You
even
should at
if it's
least know what you're buying.
speculation.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't understand what they're even buying. And nowadays, man, have you seen these free mints? This is getting out of hand now. With like, their people aren't even charging for NFT projects, and it's all about like the secondary sales. So now they're saying no creator fees, and I'm like, you're insane. That's the whole point of an NFT. What is your thoughts on that? Like that whole thing we're seeing right now with creators fees. Where do you land on that?
I think all of the things, not all of the things, I think most of the things, not even most of the things, I think many of the things that we're seeing right now are not final products. I think they're raw materials. So it's one thing to say, here's a hammer. How many things can a hammer be used for? It's something else to say, I have iron. How many things can you use iron for? Right? I think the technology that is an NFT, and I think the concept that is a royalty, to me, are raw materials. And what can we build with raw materials? We could build skyscrapers if we want to. We could build airplanes if we want to. We could build superstructures and satellites and all sorts of shit that we want to.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're like, it's like we went back to caveman times and we found this like sharp rock and we're like, look at this amazing sharp rock. I could use it to maybe scrape wood and cut twigs off so I can have a fire. And someone else is like, I have a sharp rock that looks like your sharp rock and you're using it wrong. I'm gonna use it to stab you and take your wood, right? So people can use this sharp rock in different ways. And eventually people are like, that sharp rock is actually fucking a raw material. And if you use it differently, you could actually build a space shuttle. Did you know you could build a space shuttle? And the cavemen are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I think sometimes when we get into these maxi mindsets, because we're living like, cavemen looking at the sharp rock rather than going, it's not actually the final product. The sharp rock is not the final product. It's just the raw material to build other stuff with.
Damn, yeah, 100 fucking percent. I look at NFTs honestly. The only reason why I really got into them was because I want to be able to give the world identities on them so they can have bank accounts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
once you can put it, once like people can agree like these things are non fungible and this is ownership and all that, we can start doing amazing things with NFTs that are life changing for people. Not check out this JPEG, bro.
Totally. I think for me, I like if there's not at least a part of it that is improving or intended to improve the human condition, I don't know. That's just not as interesting to me, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm altruistic and, I live on the street because every dollar I make, I give to somebody else. Like, I wish I was that, and, I try to take steps in that direction. It's really fucking hard and I'm not there. But that said, like, if we're doing stuff, if you're going to work hard at something, you might as well work hard at something that has a chance at improving the human condition. And I do think sometimes that's getting out of bed and getting through the day. Sometimes that is improving the human condition, right? Like I have days where I feel like shit. I feel like, why am I even here? I might feel stretches of depression. And what can I do to improve the human condition? I can get by, I can get by, and that's doing it. Sometimes it's something bigger. Sometimes it's changing the world, or some of that stuff. But it's different every day for every person, and for one person, every day is different. But even something like this nifty stuff, like let's even look at the speculative side of it. Let's look at the
Yeah.
the, the most degenerate part of it, which is flipping shit, and then pumping it and then leaking it to other rooms, hoping that people buy it so you can flip it for some money. Like at minimum, right? At minimum, at least what we're doing is providing some entertainment, right? Someone's making money that
Yeah.
can be used for something. This might be a stretch to say that this is improving the human condition, but I think it should at least be in our purview and at least be a reminder from time to time, like let's at least not try to tear shit down. And then when we look at NFTs, we look at it like you described it. All right, here's a raw material. How can I use this raw material not to stab that dude who collected a bunch of sticks with his raw material? Maybe I can do something else, like create a sundial and shit, so we know when to come have
Yeah.
have lunch in the morning or something like.
Yeah. This sharp rock can make more sharp rocks. Anybody want one?
There you go. Exactly. That's exactly it, dude. For real.
Totally. And I think that if we find enough people like that, and that's where this space that I've been able to find is those people, like really that are doing that for no better reason than because like they just think they're supposed to.
Yeah. That
And
that
and
for me,
being
that's
able
why life for me is crypto and cannabis. It's crypto and cannabis, right? And
Yeah,
those
me
are the
too.
two ways that I build business is in crypto and cannabis. And cannabis
Cannabis?
came to me. I've been an appreciator of cannabis for a
Put
very
that
long
shit on
time.
chain. Let's
Some
go.
are, some are. There's some cool stuff.
I
Actually, I do want to shout out DZ, and I want to make an open request to get an introduction to DZ because I think he's leading this kind of combination of crypto and cannabis. He actually invested in this crypto project, Web3 project, and what they do is they have these little devices so that we can grow a plant at home inside of this device. The device is fully automated. It handles its own humidity, pressure, all of this stuff. So it makes growing a plant super, super easy, which I think improves the human condition. I think it improves the
Yeah.
human condition getting a plant into everybody's house. And they have it tethered to like cryptocurrency rewards and stuff like that. I would love to be a part of that project. I would love to be a part of what he's doing. So I'll throw that request out there.
Is that what he's
But
doing right now?
it's one of
That's
the
the
many
shit he
things that he's
keeps
doing.
dropping right now. Like I'm gonna change everything with Web3.
It's one of the many things he's doing. And it's extremely
Because
cool. And I would love
I
to get involved.
shit. Because I remember being in his spaces back in March of 2021 when he was like when punks were just starting to get traction, and he was like, "I got punks," and everybody was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, you got punks?" And it was before Farouk and all that, before he really became DZ, I guess. But very cool kid. I'm gonna okay. I will plug DZ. I think I even yeah, that's an amazing project. Like growing pot plants in everyone's house,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
is
it's a
it
cannabis
just
plant. You can choose if it's marijuana or if it's, hemp,
CBD,
right? You can choose which side it
CBDC,
is.
or
And the only difference is the amount of the THC or the potency of the THC in the plant is the only differentiation between those two.
and you're gonna get rewards for how the plant behaves and or how what kind of care you give it.
Right now, like a lot of projects, I think you're just getting rewarded for being a participant, if I'm not mistaken. And then I'm sure that they have plans to kind of make it more involved. But, for me, like I had a few years ago, a couple guys were getting, about to make a big investment to start a cannabis-based business and asked me if I would come in and co-found it with them. And I was like, yeah, like fucking yeah. And part of it is what you were describing before. You go back to the sharp rocks. There's when you have raw materials and that eventually get turned into tools that eventually get turned into products. There's going to be people who use them for good and people who use them for bad, right?
Yeah,
Good actors and bad actors. And when markets are nascent, when they're very early and undefined, like Web3 is and like cannabis is, they're both nascent industries. It's very, very important that good actors gain influence, more quickly and more enduringly than bad actors. That's very important. And so anything I can do to, whether it's me pitching in or helping other people get going if we can get good actors into crypto and get good actors into cannabis, it's better for everybody, I think going forward.
100% agree. It's being able to discover those good actors though, because there's so many anonymous people that you don't know if like that anonymous person is just a bad actor pretending to be a good actor.
Well, it's interesting because
It
like I've
gets
been
hard.
I've been through some shit in my professional career, and I have been fucked, more times than I would like to admit. And part of it is because of that. Like I'm not the best sort of judge of character. I see optimism, right? Even to the point where when I built my last business and we had a few hundred employees, I at some point just said I'm no longer making hiring decisions. And I had other people in my company that I trusted that had ultimate authority for hiring decisions. I would provide my input. I would interview people. I would give my pros and cons, this type of stuff. But I would say, here's the deal. I would hire everybody that comes and talks to me because I can see something good that they can bring to the world, right? And I would hire them. And that's not always a good decision. So you're right that the
Yeah.
good actors and bad actors are sometimes difficult to find. But what you can also do, like what I've learned to do, is understand how to structure protections around my inadequacies in that regard. So, for example, if I were to sign a business partnership with another company, I would be very particular and very generous also, but very particular in how to draw up the clauses and the terms within those contracts in a way that say it doesn't mean that I don't trust you, right? It doesn't mean that I don't like you, but my business and all of the people who have a stake in my business, employees, investors, everybody, need to have really solid protections in case maybe you die and your younger evil brother takes control of your stake. I don't know, like, but vice versa. You need to be protected against
Or
me having a psychological freak
seriously,
out and going nuts. So like
or what the
we
fuck's
can
gonna
do
happen to
things.
you in
Yeah,
your
so we can
life that
find
might
ways to work
completely
together.
change you?
Right,
Right.
right. So we can find ways to work together if we sharpen the right skills to be able to do so. And then we can operate with optimism, right? We can operate with the goals of doing big grand things and then use some of these types of techniques to try to backstop the risk. Which is obviously why I fall in love with smart contracts, because the trustless nature of it basically simplifies all of that, and you don't have to build the skill, you just have to have the code. So it
I
makes
don't.
it, then anybody can participate in the same capacity. They don't need professional skills and all that type of shit.
Exactly. Trustlessness is gonna save us all.
It's going to
And for
help.
the simple reason that I can't trust you, you can't trust me, but I can trust that. And you can trust that. And that's all that matters, is having that ability to be able to see what it is that we're trusting, and then we no longer need to trust anything else.
Yeah, it
And
helps. Or
it's
at least we can trust on different things, like let me
right,
trust you on a
yeah.
part of it, not trust you on all of it type of thing. Like I can try I typically always choose to trust someone's intentions, right? Younger Skull, 15 years ago Skull would have also trusted their ability to execute. As
Oh
Skull grew a
yeah.
little bit older and as Skull got slapped on the face and bonked on the head too many times, he started to realize, like, sometimes I need to trust your intentions, but not trust your ability to execute. So you start to
Right.
compartmentalize. But when you add these smart contracts in place, more and more and more can fall into that. I don't have to worry about the trust factor. So I can spend more of my mental energy on the other areas and determine what to trust and what not to trust.
Wow. That is huge insight as to far, and that speaks to what blockchain technology is going to be able to do for the world, and why people, I think, at this point are either you're dead scared of it, or you are like fascinated and or pushing it and building it out. And we're starting to see more of that third part where people are like, no, I'm going to dedicate everything to this. And that's kind of what I did, was said everything else is not important anymore. This is going to change how people fundamentally do everything. And not even, most of them won't even realize that they're doing it. And I think it comes back to that IQ thing where I far more people than I realized are on the left side of the spectrum than I thought. And it's a matter of then that I think that's where memes come in. I didn't even understand what memes were. Like Doge, I bought Doge at like 4 cents and was like, this is a fucking joke. and I sold it at 8. That was a huge mistake.
I tell you, memes were an eye opener for me last year too. And the first time I was the same way. I saw memes and I was like, what the fuck, you know? And then I actually was sitting on this town hall from Olympus DAO, right? And I'm not going to get into the speculative or long term. I'm not going to evaluate Olympus DAO, but one of the guys, Fiskantis, was speaking on this town hall, and he was helping sort of his community support the project, right? And part of supporting the project is getting the word out. And he started talking about memes. And he started to describe what memes are, why they work, and how to do it effectively. And I was like, just the concept of actually doing it effectively to me, I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean do it effectively? Like what? But then I started to go, oh my God, was I short-sighted? Boy, was I closed-minded. And listening to him talk changed my entire mind, not only about memes and what they are and why they work and how they work, but about how humans consume information and how humans communicate and how we interact with each other. That was a mind-blowing thing for me to listen to that session from that team.
Yeah, it's kind of, it brings you back to that Neanderthal thing, man. Like I have a sharp rock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna forget that analogy now, because it's weird how, like, that's what these, phones, these are just sharp fucking rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And we have no idea about it. We think we're just God's gift to everything now because we have everything we've ever needed, any answer you've ever wanted. I can just look it the fuck up, and not understanding, like, you realize that made you much, much more ignorant in many ways without really ever realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just polarization. Now it's just a set of goggles we're putting on, and it's not even real information anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
Can you look at a smart contract and read that stuff?
Yep, absolutely.
Because you guys are always minting stuff that I'm like, wait, how did you even mint that? And where was that contract located? And wait, is that a cat dancing across the night sky right now, you guys?
Yeah, dude, I was in third grade. I started being involved in coding competitions, software coding competitions. So you were born in 81. What year is third grade? That's got to be like the late 80s. It was before the internet.
Would have been like it would have been like 89.
Man, me and a couple friends, they were in elementary school. They walk us out onto the sidewalk and they go, this kind lady and this kind gentleman are going to drive you to the competition. And the competition was an hour and a half away, the first one. And so they literally put 3 of us into a van with 2 old people that we had never met. And they were in charge of us the whole day as we went through this.
Love the 80s.
But then, like, by 7th grade, I was coding on my TI-83 calculator, because those calculators could run the BASIC programming language. It's called BASIC. And so I was a Dungeons and Dragons dude, so I coded a modular sort of ASCII visual RPG. So like the caret were mountains and the tildes were waves. And so I created these like ASCII maps, and then you could walk around it. And it was set up so that I could like create a little file that represented a monster. Like here's the name and here's the hit points and here's its attack type. And like weapons, like here's a sword and here's its damage and all this. And so like in school, you could connect TI-83s together through a cable. If you could hack a cable together and you could move the files across. So then me and my classmates were sitting here playing this little visual RPG on our TI-83 calculators in math class in 7th grade.
And the teacher just thought you were being a bunch of geeks, and you actually were.
We were, yeah. That's the best part.
Nothing to do with what the class was.
Yeah, I would venture to say that she thought we were being geeks. We were actually being dorks, but she didn't know the difference, so she didn't know that we had crossed that chasm.
Oh my goodness. You're like, no, we're well smarter than anything you guys are doing.
But yeah, so smart contracts to me are awesome. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Wow. I don't have a lot of experience with Solidity. I have deployed some of my own smart contracts just to learn it and test it and understand the differences between smart contract software versus traditional web software. It's very, very different, right? Like you have to care about different things. The prioritization of utilizing computational power versus using memory utilization are flipped, right? So like, you have to pay attention to different things on blockchain than you do, pre-blockchain. So it's very, very interesting. But I haven't done a ton of it to be sort of an expert. So one thing I love doing is taking a look at stuff and asking other people, like, what is this function doing? Or where are the risk vectors on this particular smart contract and stuff like that? Because I wouldn't rely on me to say if a contract is safe at all. I would rely on somebody else. But at least I can look at it and be like, what are they trying to do? I can definitely understand that. And yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I didn't even know how to write from a contract until within the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say within like last 4 months, really, that I was comfortable enough to go to a contract and spend ether
Yeah, it's a cool thing to
writing
learn.
I think it's necessary, especially. I hate to say it now, but especially with what we're seeing with like Thorcash and stuff, where like they're just taking down UIs. They're like,
Yeah.
nope, not gonna be able to use that anymore. And it's like, well, the contract is still there, and all of those contracts are still there. So integrating with them is completely possible. But I think now it's going to be a way of like, who's going to write the software that's no longer using a UI and it's just going straight to contract base.
Yep. Yep.
That'll be, maybe I should. I see.
That's
I
like
can't.
that's like a big, to me, I think it's a promise of Web3 that I don't know if it's gotten a bunch of attention or activity. I know it's gotten some, but like when we look at the interoperability of smart contracts, what we're saying is there's a whole bunch of open APIs, right? There's a whole bunch of functions that can be called by anybody, anywhere, anytime. Not every function, a lot are private and constrained, but there's a lot of public ones.
Yeah.
But then like what people right now, a lot of what's being built are sort of nearly finished products, right? Like the smart contract is what we are, right? Like it has my burning mechanisms in it. It has all this and that. But I think what's more interesting is like, if you were to build a pyramid like they did in Egypt, and instead of having a master design and cutting the blocks specifically to meet that master design, what if you said, I'm going to lay the first cornerstone, and then if anybody else wants to lay a stone, you can, right? What would the community create? And what if something great was created, but because you laid the first tiny stone, you get some attribution of value from the eventual pyramid that's built, right? Like digitally, we can manage that attribution. But even more interestingly, in the physical world, like the pyramid example, once people surround my block with their blocks, there's one thing that can exist. It can, only one thing can end up being. But in the digital world, it can go every different direction, right? Like there's infinite instances of my block living there. I mean, there's one smart contract, but 10 million people can all call that function in their own way, right? Which means 10 million people can place their own block on top of my block. And what if everybody just makes little blocks instead of everybody having a master design already in their head? Now your architectural process is completely different. You're not going, what am I trying to create? And then how do I build towards it? What you do is you actually say, I'm going to create just one basic function that I think is critical to the future world, and let other people utilize it and build it in the way that they want. Now interoperability means something completely different. But the key to it is that you can attribute value through that value chain. So if you build a foundational block that a ton of other people decide to build on top of, you can make money in perpetuity if it's done right. Right now there's a challenge, because if you build a single block, it's pretty easy for me to build that exact same block, right?
Oh wow!
So
Holy
why would I
shit!
build on your block if I can just build my own block? Why would I share with
Fuck
you
your
instead of
block.
keep it all for myself? So there's definitely some things that we have to get past. But if we can find a way to get through that, I think then we're going to see some. Not only do we see the rapid innovation that we see today, because blockchain code is public and I can innovate on your design within hours, right? The innovation is within
Literally,
hours.
I
We're
can
in
fork your
the
shit
enterprise.
tomorrow.
Yeah, in the enterprise world, it takes decades or years at least for that type of innovation to happen. We get cycles within hours. But if we do that in a way that the initial building blocks remain the initial building blocks, then the best parts of that innovation also become enduring. And when we combine rapid innovation with enduring components, you're truly building a future.
Have you heard that joke yet? Like most people don't even know what Web 3 is, but then if you ask somebody in Web 3, like, wait for Web 4, and they're like, Web 4? And they're like, yeah, it's when the AIs are writing all the protocols. And you're just like, holy shit! Okay, that's probably true. And it's going to come to that. What do you think about AI? I don't know if you need to go or anything, but, like, do you own any AI? Do you own AI on, like, NFT yet?
Yeah, you got to. It's fun. You got to. You got to. It's fun. AI is fascinating to me. I've had a interesting relationship with sort of AI over the years. I love being very curious about simulation theory. I love being very curious about the concept of singularity. Uh, I've seen The Matrix 35 times. I love
Do you
this
remember the
stuff.
first time
Right?
we were born the same year? We saw it at the same age. Do you remember the
Oh
first
yeah,
time you
we
saw The
probably saw it the
Matrix?
same night when it came out. Dude, we're probably sitting there
Totally,
same time.
totally.
Yeah,
I was sitting there with my
yeah,
buddy, like, left the theater completely speechless, like, oh shit,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
we're not even real.
Yeah, and and then Terminator 2 in the same way with fucking Skynet and stuff,
Oh my
and
god.
and one of the common themes within the concept of the singularity or simulation theory more so is that the more technology advances and the more we see line of sight to the risk of simulation, being in a simulation or seeing the singularity, the more likely it is that maybe is the case. So this is all theoretical, whatever, but it's interesting. And then when we look at the history of AI, at least the little bit that I've been exposed to, again, definitely not an expert in it. I was doing stuff in semantic machine learning 15 years ago, right? And about 10 years ago, started building technology that was pulling in social media content to start to understand how different groups of people felt about different brands and different products through semantic analysis. And when you get into semantic analysis like that, you quickly get into machine learning because the human language on social media changes so quickly, the vernacular changes so quickly. You need a machine that tries to be somewhat self-aware and understand when it doesn't understand and then try to find that understanding, right? So if
Yeah,
people start using a different term like WGMI, the machine needs to understand that there's a new term and what that term means and how to apply that to the different analytics you're trying to run. And then I got kind of frustrated because people started using this term AI and artificial intelligence because it started being in movies and stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like artificial intelligence is one thing, machine learning is different. And I'm not going to, try to debate the fine line between them and stuff like that. But there's a difference between like writing code that has a more robust data set to be more accurate with its decisions than like an actual intelligence. Like, right? Like we can argue over where on the spectrum the line
I
is
don't even
drawn,
think you need to
but it's a
argue
bit
that.
it's so far apart, right?
Like,
But now we start to see like very interesting stuff to where now there are algorithms that can go through your content that you've written in your diary or on Twitter or anywhere else. You can speak into a microphone for a half hour and you can then have a conversation with yourself because it can convert text to your voice that sounds like your voice. And obviously, the visual part of deepfakes has been around for a long time, so the video is the easy part, oddly. But
yeah,
then, because it was able to make so much sense of the content that it read that you had previously written, it can start to construct cohesive thoughts, right? Consecutive sentences that are in some way representative of what you had previously written. And it can do it with your face and with your voice. So now, is that AI? Ooh, I still, for me, I don't think that's actual intelligence, right? It's definitely not conscious. It's definitely not
no,
sentient.
it's not conscious.
But
Yeah, and I
but
think
but you're
AI
getting
needs to
close
be.
to something called intelligence, right? We're getting
Yeah,
there.
it's
And I
intelligent.
think this is big for Web3 world too, because now I don't, if I'm building a game, and I'm definitely not an expert in game building, but I've played a lot of MMOs, right? And I know there's a lot of
Yeah, me
NPCs
too.
in those
World of
MMOs,
Warcraft took
and
my
I know
soul, bro.
somebody scripted everything every one of those NPCs said back in the day. Now you don't have to script that shit. You can be like, we need a merchant who's kind of an asshole but has a good heart. Okay, feed it a bunch of content, and the AI or machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is going to create that merchant as an NPC, and that merchant as an NPC can actually change his or her or their personality as players interact with them, right? And then because that's all an algorithm, you're not constrained to people's time to write scripts to generate more and more and more NPCs. You can create infinite NPCs with infinite personalities and populate infinite worlds.
And have them be. You could even put them in the same fucking world, and it could be a different fucking story to every fucking player.
Yep.
But be the same like gist.
Yeah. Now world
Scary.
building changes. World building fundamentally changes. You know.
What? Fuck this, man. I don't want to be this old right now.
I know. Well, so there's this other company that I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of stuff with recently that is working on the anti-aging stuff. So like these things called telomeres, they cap your DNA strands and they keep the DNA strand from deteriorating. And as the telomeres decay, then your DNA can deteriorate, and that's how you get old, right? That's how cells age. And so they can now regenerate these telomeres and can kind of cause cells to get younger. So I've been like, since I was little, I was like, I'm going to live to be 120. I don't know why I picked that number. I think it's because it's more than 100. I'm like, I'm going to be 120. And I was like, because by then something will happen and I can be
Dude,
140, and then something will happen and I'll be 160. And it's not a fascination with being here forever. It's nothing like that. But it's like what you just said. Shit is so cool. Shit is so cool. I want to keep seeing it and want to keep being a part of it. And the longer I can see it and be a part of it. So get the fucking telomere technology working, because I want to see more cool shit for as many decades as I can.
no, absolutely. And dude, if we go to 120, we'd actually see like 2100. That'd be pretty fucking dope. Yeah, I was around for 2000, bitches, singing Prince.
Yep.
Motherfucker.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that is too good. I guess my biggest dream with AI would be to, I guess at some point, when we die, I guess when and if, I guess at this point, when we die, I would want to take my entire digital self, like cell phone, text messages, all of it, put it into an AI, and be able to have my grandkids be able to come talk to grandpa up until the day he died and ask him anything.
There's
And they'd
companies
be able to
working
get
on it.
a pretty good understanding of what grandpa would have said to them.
I think like we say, even the internet is a sharp rock, right? The internet technology itself. And one of the many things that it's done is it's enabled the mass proliferation of different bits of information. And sometimes those bits of information are ways of living, right? And before the internet, people could travel and see how other people lived. And after that, they could see it more readily, right? Like you can live stream someone from a different country. Traveling obviously is always there, but like the internet has given the information to more people. And I think when we look at what's seen as like a large scale issue of anxiety and depression across the US and across the globe, I wonder if that has a little bit to do with it, right? Like we all understand this experience of go on Instagram or Facebook, and we know that other people are only showing their good stuff. But that doesn't change the fact that our mind makes us feel like shit because we're not doing the same good stuff all the time, right? Like this is real for almost everybody. And so the exposure to all of these different ways of living affect us, right? And I think what happens too is sometimes, especially living in America, people go, well, there's these other people living in other places and their living conditions are very different than ours, right? And our mind interprets that in some way. Some cases it might be like, oof, I feel so fortunate, right? In some cases it might be, ooh, I like that other way better. And in some cases it makes people go, I kind of feel weird, right? It's like there's people
I
who
don't know
don't
how to feel.
yeah, yeah, and in some cases, there's other people who maybe don't have as much or are living in difficult conditions, and my conditions are materially not that bad. Like we have roofs and we have air conditioning and we have food if we need it. And then we kind of get to this weird place. It's like, wow, maybe going and punching a clock 9 to 5 to make $20 an hour so I can be stressed is kind of dumb when there's other people fighting to survive and I have more than them. We get all these different bits of information, and I think that confuses us, right? And then a lot of people, well, and I go through my own cycles, right? So sometimes we disengage. Sometimes we completely disengage, right? To your point about participation. And I've definitely had days and weeks and months and even years where I was like, I'm disengaging. I don't like, then the question becomes, what do we want to do? Right. And then we find ourselves that we have a ton of choice, right? At a minimum, we have choice of how we perceive something, how we look at something and interpret it, right? Peter Sage wrote a book called The Inside Track, and he spent some time in prison for something odd, and he started trying to help other prisoners, and he says, look outside those bars, that window of bars, right? Do you see stars or do you see mud? Because we're looking out the same window. Do you see stars or do you see mud, right? And it's a matter of perspective. Now, not all of us have the same opportunities. We don't all have the same networks or the same amount of money or the same skill set or the same pedigree or any of that. But what we do all have is we all have 2 eyes and 2 ears, and we're all collecting information from the same world, even though it's different parts of that world. But what's more important is that we have the opportunity to go, how will I interpret what I see? Will I choose to see stars or will I choose to see mud, right? And then all of a sudden we go, oh, that choice is fucking crazy. Like, I get to choose it. What do I do with this fucking choice? But then what gets tricky is we start to go, well, but I have to make the right choice. If I make the wrong choice, I'm a piece of shit and I'm worthless. And why am I even here? And, we feel worthless and stuff like that. But eventually, if we, in my perspective, if we focus a bit on self-mastery, some of those answers become more clear and some of the pressure comes off. Because sometimes it goes, my choice can be to disengage. That's okay. My choice can be to engage, and that's okay. So now I go to what's the drive behind my choice, right? Then that gets to be kind of interesting, right? And something you and I have talked about is the drive behind my choice is to, if I'm going to do something that improves the human condition. And sometimes that's just getting by. Sometimes it's changing the fucking world, right? But now you start to go, oh, almost any choice I make is actually kind of the right choice. Doesn't always have the right results. Doesn't always, do what I wish it did. But the choice itself was in the right spot, Then that gives us maybe the energy to participate. That might give us the energy to participate. And then we can start to be a part of things, whatever that means to us, and start to find the way that we can work with others and participate collaboratively. And that, to me, I think is pretty cool.
Jesus. Bro, no wonder you wanted to say, like, you're just a philosophical guy, huh? Like, that's amazing. Like, holy shit. Like, it really does really start to make a difference in why we're all here. And it's amazing to me because to even know that, like, there's going to be a lot of other people that feel exactly the same that just didn't have that the way that you put it, man. That's quite amazing, because it is very, very true. And I've been wrestling that forever now, especially in this space, and knowing so much about everything about it, right? Because for me, it was like I became very obsessed, and I thirst for knowledge, and when I really get obsessed over it, like, I'm in it. And I went to Burning Man for 10 years and became an artist because that's what I thought. And then all of a sudden I was at Burning Man and I was like, wait, what are you fucking people do? What are we doing out here? We're going to do this. And how much was that to get out here? And wait, and then it all became like this big thing about, like, what is the human condition and what the hell am I doing to change it? And it became like the moment that it became selfish, I had to check completely out, and then I went to work for Apple. So I don't really know where it all changed until now, and now I really just want to start sharing the crypto condition, because I think it's the most amazing thing that's happened in our lifetimes. I really, really do. Let me ask you that. Who do you think Satoshi is?
I think there was this. I forget the dude's name, and I probably should know being in the space, but this dude claimed to be him, and there's this court case in Florida where he had to prove he was him, and I think the jury or somebody sided with him, so they said like legally he's reached the burden of proof that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, this dude. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I don't want to get into too much of that stuff, but I don't know.
It was Hal.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna say it now. It was
Yeah.
definitely Hal. And then he got MS and died, and that's why no one's moved the tokens.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
Zuko knows too, because Zuko was friends with Hal and Satoshi on the board. So the guy who started Zcash, Zuko definitely knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, and I think it's more power to him for letting it be Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin is much better off not having a creator, because now we look at. Gosh, did you see the meme of our ETH creator?
Which one?
The one that's circulating right now of him with like a water bottle in his pocket.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Is that F2 in your pocket, or are you just happy to see us?
Dude, I feel bad. I'm like, that is one rock solid human being, and you guys are taking him to that level. I hope he did it on purpose, just to fuck with you idiots.
That's right.
Do you see networks staying isolated like universes, or do you see there being a way for them to be able to plug into each other? Or do you not even play that game right now? You're going to let somebody else build those blocks because you're, like most of us, trying to concentrate on just who's building the block in the first place.
Yeah, I don't speculate on it too much, primarily because the forces that drive speculative market movements are not always as foundational or fundamental as the architecture like you're talking about. But I definitely pay attention to it, and I think I like to observe how things move naturally, and then how outside actors cause unnatural things to happen. These are kind of the two patterns that I like to look for. Now, if we look at, let's say the Earth got overpopulated, right? What would happen? We'd probably build taller skyscrapers so we could fit more people on Earth, right? We would probably also get people to move to Mars, right? So that we'd have another planet that people live on. And as things continue to go, more people would live on more planets. Now, would all these people be connected back to a central governance, or would they all want their own governance? Probably a blend. Total blend, right? Some will ally, some will be different, some will be this and that for different reasons and all that. So I think the same thing happens with these chains. I think there's going to be different pockets of growth in different areas for different reasons, and some of the close networks are going to be designed, engineered and predictable, and some are going to be a bit happenstance. But so now from there, I start to go, the Eth1 with Eth2s start to look a little bit like dot and parachains. Right? Not like technologically, architecturally speaking, and not in the exact same way, but conceptually, they kind of have a similar effect on community building, maybe not. And then more L1s kind of look like different colonies that pop up, and then do they get interconnected and go cross-chain and all that type of stuff. But so like that said, there's really something to be said for having a base layer that has a high confidence of security and stability, right? Like, for example, F1 is, and like dot would be if a lot of parachains spin up, and then having the connected variability of other communities to sort of branch off, like in FL2, where it's anchored by the L1 but can also do its own thing, and then a parachain being able to do its own thing, but it's also anchored back to the base layer dot. I do like that type of stuff. I like that Gavin has a lot of the understanding of the concepts that worked in Eth, and now has the autonomy to create another flavor of it, for better or worse. It can keep some of the good concepts and make some adjustments. So I like that connection there. There's a lot of stuff to like about it.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote Solidity and then was like, "This is broken already. Shit, we gotta do something about this." And so that's why I have the only and I'm not shilling Dot. I'm not at all. But when I when I zoomed out personally after looking at all the things, I was like, that one really does make the most sense, and it's probably being written the best on Rust. And like Solidity's, I don't, nothing against it because I don't write, like I don't code and stuff like that, so I don't really have a point of reference other than the regurgitation of other smart people that I've listened to, and then taken all of that and put it together. But
You know,
it
we
just
talked.
seems like that would be more or less what I would think you would need to go towards in order to keep. Because now we have all these EVM chains, but you can't even bridge things properly.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we go back to kind of those three pillars we talked about earlier, and one of those being the developer activity, right, and building out that community. When you bring a bunch of smart people and an abundance of resources together, you get evolution, right? And so that's where you can get maybe a chain that's far behind can jump way ahead because of that, right? So we look at, all right, how do we bring smart minds in? Gavin can do that, right? Vitalik can do that. They're doing that. Polygon, they can do that. How do you bring the developers in? Well, you can have a fund and give them grants. That definitely helps or whatever. But I think there's a whole group here that these L1s, and I don't know because I'm not talking to the L1s, you know, leaders, and so I don't know exactly their strategies or activities, but I talk to a lot of people in the enterprise world, right? And that's where my background is for 25 years, from the biggest companies in the world to startups and everything in between, and providing services to hundreds of them. And I talk to a lot of them, and what I see not being looked at closely is using professional services agencies as a pathway to onboard more developer activity, because that developer activity brings business clients. So let's look at it this way. Let's say you are a company and you're like, I want to do some blockchain stuff, right? But you're not blockchain experts and you're not trying to be. That's not your line of business. That's not your specialty. So you hire it out, right? You're going to go look at maybe 10 different companies that do blockchain development. You're going to shortlist it to 3. You're going to have a couple hours or many hours of conversations with each of them to help them understand what you're trying to accomplish. And they're going to tell you what they think the best way to accomplish it is, right? And you're going to pick one of those 3 and you're going to pay them, and they're going to do the work, and they're going to deliver that work to you. Okay. So your choice on which chain to use is not really one that you're making on your own. You're taking the advice of these professional services companies, right? And the professional services companies are going to make their decision through a variety of different ways. But if I'm Dot, or I'm Cosmos, or I'm Near, and I'm going, how do I get the most dApps on my chain? One way is to incentivize entrepreneurs. Fine, right? The other way is to go, if I can get a huge number of professional services companies, you know, blockchain development firms, to really love my platform, they're going to pitch my platform to all of their clients. That's my business development channel. That's my distribution channel. But then what's going to be more interesting, and I think this is even more powerful, those professional services companies are going to start posting jobs online because they need to hire, right? And when they post those jobs online, they're going to list very specific skill sets. It's going to be Rust, or it's going to be Solidity, or it's going to be Golang. It's going to be a specific thing. And then guess what developers are going to do? They're going to look at all these job listings. They're going to go, whoa, most of the job listings are in that technology stack. I need to learn that technology stack. And they're going to self-select your chain's technology stack so that they can get a job with the professional service company. And then whether or not they get that job, they have that skill set that maps to your chain, and they're going to become a developer in your ecosystem one way or another because they don't know the language to go do it on a different chain. I think there's a massive, massive onboarding opportunity through professional services companies that isn't being tapped into.
Jesus, yeah, because especially with like Solidity right now. But yeah, have you seen what you've heard of Viper then? What Viper's doing to Solidity contracts?
Nope, I haven't seen that one.
Making them almost gasless.
Okay.
Taking the same Solidity contract, rewriting it in Viper code, and then the contract is almost like gasless to mint and things from, to interact with.
Interesting.
Which is gonna, I think, just if somebody were to just do that right now, you would make a fortune for some of these AMMs. For, I mean, even for like the if you mint from a Viper contract or you mint from a regular contract, you'll notice immediately if you're working in different browsers the gas difference in the same block.
Sure.
And it's just really cool that they're starting to write that. But I think you're right, and it doesn't really matter if you have the best code if no one's even using it.
Yeah, the
And I
best
think
code in a way is a means to the end because it's your ability to onboard and people into your ecosystem. And if you can't onboard people, it doesn't matter how good your code is. But also at the end of the day, as different companies compete and as multiple chains onboard people into their ecosystem, naturally the technology is going to have a difference. And, of the three horses that are at the end of the race, which one actually wins is going to have something to do with that technology. But really, if you don't onboard people because of your technology, then you're not even going to be there at the end of the race.
you'll be able to play. It's going to be crazy. It is. It's very interesting, and it's at a point now where it's anyone's kind of. It's still anyone's game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't think that anyone's really won that race. I think Ethereum definitely has a leadership role, only because it was the first. They were like, "Here's a smart contract," and people were like, "Holy shit! Anybody else see this?"
Yeah. And that should be
And
worth something, right? Like it's showing
and
vision, vision
it
and
really
ability to
is.
execute. They have vision and ability to execute. That's worth something.
Yeah, they even have a dead chain that's still worth a fortune.
Yeah. Yeah. For now,
So,
anyway. Yeah. Maybe it wins.
and
Who
now there's
knows?
going to be another
Who
one.
knows?
Oh my god! After the
Yeah.
fork, there's
Yeah.
going to be the proof of work and then the proof of stake chains.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
Very fucking
interesting,
cool.
when we talk about choosing how to participate because like last summer my decision how to participate was pretty easy. Learn how to increase gas on MetaMask faster than everybody so I can mint before they do and I'm good. That's all the participation I need. That is all the alpha I need. Where now it's like and as time goes on there's the ecosystem's going to get so fucking big, like so big. Like you look at all the metaverse stuff, DeFi stuff, there's going to be sectors that don't even exist yet that will
Yep.
dozens, right? Nifty, DeFi,
Dozens.
our list is like 6 or 7 long. It's going to be 100, 200, 2,000 long. And then people have more difficult, but more opportunities to choose how to participate. Do you be a generalist? Do you,
Yeah.
do
Whether
you
you're
go into a
just
specific
playing.
thing? Are you a content creator on this type of tech? It's going to be interesting and it's going to allow a lot of people to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna get. Dang. It really just makes you start thinking like. I guess it's a matter of finding the people that are participating the way that you want to participate and linking up with them to do that. However it is. And it could be social, it could be work, it could be speculation, gambling,
Yeah.
game playing.
Yeah.
That's where I think people really get confused with cryptocurrency is they look at it like this digital thing like I don't want to do that. That's stupid. And it's like right, but how it's going to integrate into the way that you do want to live life is where I don't think that you're looking at it. And it does. And that's where I think the people who get really excited about cryptocurrency laugh at the people who are like, that's stupid. Because it's like, it is what you love. It's just not, the flavor hasn't been created in the way that you're able to consume it yet.
Yeah. Totally. I got there's companies laying people off left and right now, right? There's a bunch of companies laying off a bunch of people. And a lot of the people that are getting laid off are not in their 20s. Like a lot of them are in their 40s and 50s and stuff like this, right? And so people are starting to kind of be like, oh man, how do I get hired, especially if a recession's coming, what happens and stuff like that. And a lot of people are not looking at Web3 because in their mind they're thinking, I don't know Web3. That's all really difficult stuff. I need to stick to the companies that I'm used to. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It's probably the right idea for most people, right? But for some people, I think it's worth looking and going, whoa, my skill sets are actually directly transferable, right? Like I was talking to a gentleman who's a UX UI designer. He's like, man, I know how to design these types of products and that's what I did and that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm like, yeah, but bro, how many of those new types of products are coming out and launching and hiring, right? Like that market's so saturated, the one that he's in. Like here, look at this website. I dropped him like 2 websites that just list, Web3 jobs or whatever careers. I'm like, look at all of these jobs that you qualify for. Like they're listing skill sets. You have those skill sets. And don't worry that you don't have experience UI designing DeFi apps, because nobody does. Like there's not a whole bunch of people with the 2 decades of experience fucking doing it, right? Like your skills are so transferable. Come look over here. But you're right. People look at, they're like, well, but Bitcoin price is down. I don't want to go into that market. Like Bitcoin price does not represent the fucking market, right? It represents that part of the market. But if you look at technology building, right? You look at technology building, it's not represented by the Bitcoin price. Like there's so many job opportunities. There's so many ways to participate. Even it could be a hobby, right? It could be a hobby for the next 5 years and then become a job. Who knows? There's so many opportunities. But yeah, to your point, I think oftentimes it's worth it for us to step back and go, ooh, let me just kind of see what's going on and choose how to participate.
Because that's people have, you really don't understand. Like it's doing what it is that you want to do. It's just Web3 is giving people the ability to do what like nations, like third world nations, were able to do because everyone else went through the industrial phase of life, right? They were able to then like compound that and be like, oh, I don't need to lay out all these telephone wires. I'm going to put up a tower, and now we have cell phones.
Right.
And you were able to like leapfrog, and Web3 is going to give people that ability to leapfrog without even needing to really flinch. It's just a matter of changing your trajectory to be like, okay, this is a different way of doing something that I've kind of already been doing now for at least 15 years. Since the iPhone was invented, that changed everything. I was using a fucking razor before that, trying to triple click for a fucking C. Okay, like, don't tell me that things are the same, because my dad told me he'd never fucking own an iPhone. Guess what he owns now? I don't think it was because he wanted to. He still doesn't know how to use the fucking thing, and that's another discussion for another day about like why people are running the country that can't run an iPhone. It makes no sense to me.
Wisdom and experience has a value too,
It really does, and it's like they don't even understand. They're like, whoa, digital currency? That's a joke. And it's like, okay, you've never played World of Warcraft, pal. Okay? Like, and then lost your password. And it's because you if you can't conceptualize what digital ownership even is, but it's like those are the people that are currently still running everything. 10 years from now, when the millennials start to run things with their memes, it's gonna be a different world we live. We're the beginning of the millennials. Like I'm a fucking millennial because I was born in '81. I was the first, and so it really comes down to the fundamental way that we're gonna live our lives in 5 years. Like people can transition seamlessly. You just need to like really flip the switch in your head. That for me it was like, okay, Doge is God. God is Doge. There is no difference. There is no difference. Nobody's going to prove to me that one exists and the other one doesn't. Ever. On either side of that, actually. like I could go either way. I'm agnostic. But it's real enough to where it's real. And it's becoming very blurry at this point in how we're all doing things. I don't even know how the fuck I want to participate. Thanks, Skull.
Me either,
like,
bro. Me either.
Shit, now I have this whole new question to answer. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Yeah, me either, bro.
God.
Like I was, last year I was just straight up. I mean, I was a white paper researcher and a degener, and I mean, for me, I'm always looking at models. I like models. I like how are things changing from how people interact with each other, and how does that, sort of create opportunity for people and that type of stuff. But speculation was a big part of it too. And then, like I say, this year I started to go, ooh, there's stuff happening on all over the place. Like, and so I started just like getting back in contact with my professional network and expanding, my professional network and more on the lines of Web3, where I used to be all sort of commerce stuff. And it it's exciting in that there are so many opportunities. It's also encumbering because there's so many opportunities.
Right.
There's so many different ways to look at things and so many different ways to participate. And I, like anybody else, there's certain things I like to do, certain things that I need to do, certain things that I would want to do, certain things that I don't want to do. And then when you combine all of that, it gets difficult, right? Like, I want to
Yeah.
do stuff that I love, that helps people, that isn't too hard to work, that makes me a bunch of money. I don't want to do stuff that's really hard, that hurts people, that doesn't make me any money, and is all that, right? But then all that stuff blends together when you choose how to participate. Okay, if I want to participate that way, it works on this attribute, it doesn't work on that attribute. And then we have this crazy fucking human constraint that we're afraid of failing and afraid of being wrong and picking the right path, and that all comes into it too. So dude, I feel you, man. Like, I feel you. Like, it's hard to know how to participate. Definitely take one step forward, and you're definitely doing that, and it's inspirational for me. I know that we have to take one step forward, but maybe that is the answer, to take a step forward versus try to choose the full participation decision all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it almost is impossible at that point. You really just one step at a time. Just you'll fall into whatever it is that you love. It happens throughout life, I think, for everybody. But cryptocurrency really just expands it to a place that I don't think a lot of people were expecting.
Right.
And it got really cool really quick, and now people are smoking squiggles, bro. and winning big time.
I love, like, the visual cracks me up every time I see it. I'm like, that's basically me. Like
Me too,
I'm
dude.
slouched right now, and I'd had a joint earlier, so like I was. But there's a funny thing too that, this kind of just cracks me up. But there's sort of this, the image is an inversion of financial value perception, right? Like, you look at the value of the MF, or you look at the value of the squiggle. Dude's burning the squiggle. for some reason
Yeah,
that
he's
just fucking
smoking them,
for some
dude.
reason that just fucking just cracks me up. Like,
Yeah, we're smoking squiggles now. This is not
I love it.
because it's really quite true. This and the squiggles and the MFers are both iconic, and for different reasons altogether. Like, and the maxis of both of those groups would actually, some of them might fight each other,
Yeah.
and that's what's really funny. And then some of them, like yourself, blend them, and you're just like, nah, it's all one and the same.
Yeah.
It's just us. It's really something very, very cool. Man, I could go into like a million different directions about what it. Do you What was the last book you read?
Well, the answer is almost always the Tao Te Ching. I've read the Tao Te Ching about 40 times. I read it. I read a couple pages every day, every single day.
Nice.
But I keep a rotation of usually like 3 to 5 books. So right now I have 5 books that I'm reading, and I just do a couple different pages. And I didn't used to read. Like, my whole life, I never read at all. I think from like exiting college till like 4 years ago, I read one book, literally one book. And then since then, I've just read a ton. My wife got me into reading, and I just haven't stopped. But for me, it's more like a mood. There's a certain mood I'm in. Sometimes I want a philosophical book. Sometimes I want just a lighthearted, like, give me some. I haven't read the Harry Potter books, but like, my nephew wants me to read it. Like, yeah, I just want a whimsical afternoon read or something. But
Yeah.
right now I'm reading. I forget the name of this one. It's pretty cool though. It's about, like, well, Norse, right? It's like a Norse story and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
I read this really good book by Neil Gaiman called Norse Mythology. It's fucking awesome. Really, really good book. But yeah, the Tao Te
All
Ching I
right,
read, and the Wahoo Ching I read. Those are always in rotation. And as soon as I finish it, I start it again.
dude. Sick.
Cultivating Stillness. I read a lot of Stoic philosophy, and I read a lot of Taoist text. I like the old stuff that
Yep.
still resonates, because it, to me, means that it stood the test of time.
Fucking
And I
love that
like
shit.
to, I can't read Chinese, but I try to get as close as I can to the original texts. I like hearing from the original authors. So that's mostly what I read.
Dope. How much do you sleep every night?
Yeah, I sleep well. I sleep well.
Yeah.
I had a, I used to, in the corporate world, I was stressed all the time and didn't sleep well. And then my mind would spin and I'd be up till 2 a.m. and then my alarm would go off in the morning and I'd be upset and I'd get up. And, I got to the point where, I think, a lot of people had, I had months where I was suicidal, dude. Like I didn't get out of bed for about a week. There were days where I wouldn't go into the kitchen because I was afraid I would grab a knife and, not even say the words out loud, but do stuff that aren't, like I was deathly afraid. And at some point it got to the point where I was like, my mom is suffering watching me go through this. My wife is suffering watching me go through this. I'm a fucking dick because I'm not doing what I need to do to reduce their suffering. So that's when I started to look inward and think about self-mastery, because I was like, well, I can tell my mom, don't worry, tell my wife, don't worry, all I want. It doesn't change shit. The only thing that's going to reduce their suffering is to reduce my own suffering. I mean, at the end of the day. So that's when I started. And the first thing I was like, well, I have to be able to sleep, because if I can't sleep, I wake up pissed off. So I was like, how do I sleep? Okay, well, meditation, right? Meditation helps me detach from these ruminating thoughts. So meditation helped me sleep, right? And through meditation, you learn to breathe. I learned to breathe all over again. I realized that I had been living for years unable to take a deep breath. Like when you take a deep breath, that feels good, like your lungs fully expand. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done that. I'd gone years without being able to physically take a deep breath. I tried and couldn't. I felt like there was a fist closed around my chest, inside my chest. I felt like it was squeezing me all the time, just squeezing. I was like, this can't happen. So meditation got me into breathing. I say I learned to breathe all over again. And since then, I sleep so good, dude. I go to sleep easy. I can breathe easy anytime. I can breathe easy, stuff like that. Now I get excited about shit. Like, so sometimes I'm up a little bit later, like, I want to do this, and I want to do that. I got to look at this, research that, and then I have to shut it
That's
off.
what
So now I
life
have some of
is.
that, but
It's all this
now I
crypto
know how to shut it
24/7.
off. I have the tools and techniques to shut it off. So yeah, I've slept good for years now.
Dope. I'm gonna have to maybe try that, because yeah, I can't. I sleep about 4 hours a night, only because I'm up all the time thinking about crypto. But
Yeah.
no, that's so good. As far as is there any? Do you see any bigger companies? Do you see them utilizing the tools in place, or do you see them trying to build their own blocks? Like if an Apple comes into this game, do you see Apple building an Apple blockchain, or do you see Apple utilizing Flow?
Probably build their own for Apple specifically, but for each business, it depends on their core strength. Yeah, there's the companies that succeed the most tend to know what they're the best at and double and triple down on it. And so, like Apple, for example, what are they good at? Designing cool, easy to use stuff and creating a walled garden around it. That's what they're good at. I don't know why they would deviate from that, right? Some other companies are better at, like I come from the retail world, and retailers are really good at understanding how to quickly react to consumer demand, to build a supply chain to fulfill that demand, and then to create relationships where they can procure inventory and get it to that consumer as quickly as possible for as cheap as possible, right? That's what retailers do. Now they're going to look at that and they're going to do what we call a build versus buy decision. They're going to assign teams and they're going to say, go look at what exists and then go look at what it would take if we were to create our own thing. And they're going to compare those two things. And they're going to look at the pros and cons of each, the cost of each, the time to market of each, and they're going to make their own decision. So like Apple's going to start with the priority of we need to be proprietary and create cool shit that's easy to use. The retailers are going to say we need to move stuff to the consumer as quickly as possible. And so they're going to be agnostic. They're not going to care if it's public or private, as long as it gets done what they need to get done and helps with their time to market and costs. And then if we go to all the other different companies, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to have a phone call next week with a company that's looking to completely reinvent loyalty points. right? And they're gonna completely reinvent royalty points, and it's going to be using blockchain technology and to create an open exchange. I know a million people have thought about it. Every week someone tells me about it,
Everyone is talking about
and
like
there's a company
Delta
that's been
Sky
working on it.
Miles.
Yeah, there's a company that's been working on it for years. So I'm going to meet with their CEO in a couple of weeks and get to know him. Like I say, this other company is doing like, and so he's going to, I don't know if he's going to build his own or do it private, right? But the point being, every company has what they're good at. What's their core strength? Is it
Yeah.
innovation? Is it scale? Is it throughput? Is it, design? And then they're going to decide whether to use a public blockchain or go private. And even when they go private, it doesn't mean they're building their own, right? Like a
Well,
company that does a private blockchain could buy something and use existing building blocks, or they could build their own.
yeah, it's not even about the monetary value of a blockchain. It's the security value of a blockchain. Like what these companies can start to do with the rails of like, you see what they were kind of doing in China with VeChain, where you scan like a barcode of your chicken, and then you know the day your chicken died, what it ate every day, how much it weighed throughout its life, how many steps it took every day, off of the barcode because the damn thing got scanned every day. It's like how many Americans, especially in this green, like I'm eating alfalfa from fucking drinking water from Fiji, wouldn't actually want to know like what moment that it was bottled at the source,
Yeah.
or like even a bottle of wine. How much like water did those grapes in that bottle get that year?
Right. Well, then like when blockchain comes in, you have to start to look at how, like, what value does blockchain come in? This is how enterprises are thinking about it, right? So like that example, and we're talking about tracking sourcing information, right? And following that
Yep.
inventory through the supply chain and metadata that's attached to it. Been around for 20 years, all right? Been around for 20 years. Retailers were playing around with RFID tags back in the day doing the same thing, like humanless chat, all this stuff already existed, right? And so there's companies right now that are doing it. There's a company that can put a tag on your water bottle, right? And then that tag knows how much water you drank and can tell you and put it into your health records. Are you drinking enough water, and how much you're eating, can give you suggestions, stuff like that. But then for blockchain to work or to be useful, you have to go, well, what value does blockchain provide, right? Now, some technologists, I talked to some architects, and some of these architects are saying, I don't see the point in blockchain, they say. Right. They're clear, right? I'm not saying if they're right or wrong. I interrogate blockchain. I interrogate Web3 because I want to know what's real and what's not too. They say, look, anything blockchain can do in terms of their business, context matters, right? They would say SQL database is faster and more productive. Why do I want a slower, more expensive replacement for SQL database, right? Now, other people would look at it and go, well, data integrity, right? Maybe SQL database doesn't have the integrity of the data as a blockchain does, right? Or maybe the transparency of the data, or some of these types of things. So each of these different applications ultimately have some end use, and whether or not blockchain caters itself to that end use is ultimately paramount as to whether these enterprises actually use blockchain to do it. Now, that said, there's another track that I think is happening too. I think some people are putting and this I believe is happening across enterprise at a larger scale than we anticipate. I think banks are doing more than we think. I think retailers are doing more than we think. I think all big companies are doing more than we think. And I think what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we have a bunch of fucking cash, so it's worth it to set this other track of our business growth that just assumes blockchain is the future. Right? So they're like, okay, whatever we're going to build, we're going to start building some stuff on blockchain tech, whether or not it's better right now, whether or not it's fit for purpose right now, whether or not, but we need to build that muscle as an enterprise, lest we get lapped in the next decade and disappear off the face of the earth and all get fired. So they're starting to build products that have normal, end use cases that could be done without blockchain, but I think they're building them on blockchain just to gain the experience and to be sort of future proof would be the term that they might use. And then because of that, I think blockchain has an inherent path forward, right? Because even if it takes 15 or 10 years or whatever for blockchain to meet all of the needs of all of the people or whatever, it's going to be embedded in a lot of these enterprise systems because the companies felt like they needed to be future proof, whether or not it makes sense today. So that's why I'm like, I want to be on both sides of this world, the Gulf of Mexico or whatever, the salt water. I want to be in the Mississippi River, the fresh water, meaning decentralization versus enterprise. And I want to be in the brackish area in between because there's a lot of activity happening.
Yeah, I think it'll probably end up going a little bit of both ways. That's going to be, and never mind even if, when you add in like the macro environment, like what's
Right.
happening to currencies around the world right now.
Yep.
Holy shit! Why aren't you trading currency right now? Volatility is insane.
Yeah.
Like what's happening to the yuan and like in Japan and wow, and China's now I'm starting to see is now. I mean, it's gonna be above 7.
Trading itself is a tough go-to. I've done it profitably for years, and I know a lot of people who do it have done it for decades. But here's the thing: like when you when you're trading and you're not dependent on a profitable month to pay your bills, it's different than when you need a profitable month to pay your bills. When you're dependent on it as income, it's a completely different psychological game than when you're not dependent on it as income. And look, less than 2% of all traders are profitable, right? Now,
Is it
if you
that
go into
small?
less than 2%, now if you go into that 2% and you go, you know what, we're going to not only do you have to be profitable, but you have to actually pay your mortgage with your profitability, is going to be even harder. The psychological challenges of being profitable anyway are difficult. Just we carry so many biases and misunderstandings of how the world works, and we get in our own way. And that's why 98% of traders fail, because we have underlying infinitesimal beliefs that are counterproductive in the context of trading a volatile market. But then if you add the pressure of having to pay your mortgage with it and feed your family with it, it's very difficult. So for me, that's why I'm more, I'm going to speculate in bull markets without a doubt, and I'm going to trade forever without a doubt. But I'd look kind of longer term, enduring income, from investing and from helping businesses be built, because the psychological pressure of paying the mortgage with trading is not to be underestimated.
That seems insane. I never even thought about that. Yeah, I guess it becomes like I don't know. I guess late. Yeah, I guess when you're doing it as a form of income, you're not thinking about anything anymore, especially from a trader's perspective, because you don't give a shit if it's going up, down, or sideways. Like probably let more if it's going sideways because that's a
I
problem.
can tell you two of the traditional traders that I know about the most that have been
Yeah.
successful professional for decades. One of them barely survived cancer and still lives with cancer. So psychologically, he's like, fuck it. Right. And then the other person is such a machine. He tracks in a spreadsheet what he eats, when he eats it, how much he drinks, when he woke up. He checks in every hour on his stress levels,
No.
and he tracks all
Really?
of that. And he can predict, like, if I have spaghetti at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm going to have a 3% reduction in my performance on Wednesday and Thursday. Like, it's these two
What?
extremes that actually do this on a sustained level for decades.
Whoa,
It's
whoa,
not a,
whoa, whoa, whoa. Like really, really? Does he have a life aside from anything though?
you know
Or is
what
he
he
just like
tried.
does he find like can you fundamentally work that into your equation to where you're like I'm taking 2 weeks off? What the fuck?
He made the money he needed to retire,
I did.
and he couldn't quit.
No.
He lives a very stressful life, and he knows it, and he's not sure how to stop. And he has more money than he could ever count.
No way. Oh, at that point you're like fuck. Like it has to be like a mental thing at that point though. And
Yeah.
that's why you're like you're almost scared of that, like the OCD that you've created in yourself.
It's one thing to trade bull markets, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
I'll continue to do that forever. But like the crypto is not an efficient market, right? Forex is an efficient market. Stocks a little less so, but like as markets get more efficient, it gets closer to being a bit of a zero sum game, right? And it's highly competitive. And you have to be a machine because your human error is what causes losses, and you have to eliminate human error. So that's very, very, very difficult goal. It's different trading bull markets and assuming we have a good bull cycle every 3 or 4 years. That's fine. That's a different thing. It's trading, but it's not like what people would consider truly day trading, where you have to make money regardless of market conditions. That's a different ballgame.
Where you're watching 30-second charts and shit.
Well, it could even be, you could even do hourly or daily. You can do whatever time frame you want. Like some of these guys will
Okay.
only trade one trade a week, or some do 5 trades a day. It's all, but the psychological challenge doesn't change. The psychological challenge doesn't change.
Whoa. Yeah, either way, like trading a week is almost more difficult than trading a 30-second chart. You have to be that much more sure about your bet, depending on what happens in that week.
Yeah, it depends on what you're after.
Wow, how cool! I always wanted to be a trader. I never was though.
To keep it as a hobby, make it a profitable hobby. Don't make it a primary income unless you're really, really ready.
Yeah. Or yeah, you would even need the capital too. I think that's where I've always kind of gotten caught up. I've
You have
just
to have the
never.
capital, yeah. Like I was when I was trading forex profitably, and I might go back into trading forex. We'll see, but like I had the money. I had money. I didn't need to trade profitably to survive, right? I traded profitably. I took profits. I could keep my savings, keep my investments, my investments. But when I start to go, okay, let me change gears. Let me make this my profession going forward. It is a whole different game. It's going from Little League to Hall of Fame baseball, skipping the majors altogether.
Holy shit! Yeah, you better be able to see a 99-mile-an-hour fastball every fucking time,
Yeah,
and hit it out of the park.
yeah, yep,
End of it.
yep,
Mark McGuire without the drugs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's why there's I think a lot of the really successful sort of crypto day traders, I think a lot of them came from those other markets, because they're like, oh, it's easier to just succeed in the bull market and then take 2 years off.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. Succeed in the bull market and take a couple years.
If
Now,
that
now I
if
want to help
if
build businesses, right? Now I'm motivated to help build
Jesus.
businesses. But the
Yeah.
reason I
See.
came was to be like, it's easy. Like the bull market's easy to trade. The bear market's really hard. So just take time
I
off because you
was
can make so much in the bull market. But who knows if that continues, and who knows if that continues for decades and all that. So
Yeah, I made money on accident in the bull market only because I was doing so much goddamn research about everything that I just fell into a couple things and I was like, holy shit.
yeah,
Like even minting my squiggle, I won it in Discord.
yeah,
I was in Discord one morning and I was like, hit the little check mark, see what's going down. 30 seconds later, I was like, crypto prowess, you won. I was like, what?
yeah,
Like, won what? A
yeah.
squiggle? And they were
What is
still
that?
sub 1 ETH at the time.
Yeah,
But that's just how like early I get. But even at the time, like I couldn't like go out and buy a squiggle. I wasn't explaining that to anyone. You bought a what? No, check it out. We can go to the website and we can play with it online.
yeah, exactly.
But then when you figure out like it literally lives on chain, like you can and on chain, I think people don't realize like it literally like you can go to a website and that's I guess technically I own the website. I don't know if that's a real way you can really say that at that point. It's like an IPFS thing and if you have to go that far down the rabbit hole, it probably loses its allure. But there is that your squiggle then?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh fuck you! You have like a full spectrum, non-spectrum, or is that really a full spectrum squiggle?
I don't think it's technically a full spectrum, but I
Okay.
I chose it because visually it covers a lot of it.
I was like, how ballin' are you, bro? like you got the full spectrum squiggle? Oh, okay. That makes me feel better, actually. But actually, like oddly enough, like people don't realize like what a full spectrum squiggle is. Like they don't like unless you're talking to somebody that knows squiggles. Like a squiggle is every squiggle is the same for the most part
Yeah.
until you start getting into like ribbed and fuzzy and all these jammy things. About I geeked out on squiggles for a while.
Yeah, they're sick.
Um,
Snowfro's sick. The whole thing is pretty
I
cool.
really like Snowfro. I actually reached out to him. I was like, Snowfro, I'm doing this thing. I want to interview you. He's like, that's cool, man. Still liking the squiggle, and I don't have the heart to write back to him now. Oh, but that's okay. Oh man, that is like as far as like, are you building out Web3 companies, or are you more or less going towards helping Web2 companies turn into a Web3 at least forward-looking company?
We will see. Right now, I am advising and networking and having kind of thought sharing and thought leadership conversations. And it's interesting because I sort of like, I don't want to move too quick on what I do next and miss out on really cool opportunities, but I don't want to sit around forever because I have a bit of a sense of urgency, because things move quick and I want to be a part of it. The cannabis business is a big part of my time. Cannabis business is it's a multi-million-dollar business, and it's not getting smaller. I can tell you that. So that's going to command more of my time because we're going to be building our team to be a lot bigger, and our reach across the country is getting bigger. So that's a big part of my time. But in Web3 right now, I'm advising until I make the decision on what to do next, and it's advising a couple of Web3 projects. It's advising a couple of enterprises that have not done anything in Web3 that are still trying to figure out if they care and when they care and how to care.
Yeah.
And interestingly, a lot of conversations are kind of in between, because people want, the enterprise folk want to take half steps into Web3, and the Web3 people just want to bring enterprises in as clients, right? So that brackish water is still, it's not really that brackish yet. It's sort of like the Mississippi River hits the Gulf and then there's like a dam that kind of stops it. And I
Yeah.
feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
I feel like I'm probably interested in helping to facilitate the teardown of that dam in a way to create that brackish water, in a way that it benefits both sides and maintains the integrity, right? I don't want to bring enterprises in a way that it destroys the decentralized dream, because that's why I'm here in the fucking first place. But at the same time, like if I can have a play in it, I would want that play to help everybody kind of make a better place, not try to compete with each other and win or something like that.
Or at least have an understanding of what it is they're doing in the first place.
Right. Right.
Like, understand, like, if that's what you want to do, like, okay, full steam ahead, you go and do your thing. But yeah, I think that is the best way to look at it. Just breaking the dam to be able to, like, let people choose, and not be like pigeonholed to be like, oh, I'm gonna be like Web3 charging ahead as only Web3, or Web2 barging in on Web3.
Yeah. And
And
it's wild because like I was moving really quickly to pick a path, and I've slowed down after having so many conversations, because what I'm finding is when we go into the enterprise world, and this is both big enterprise, like, Fortune 50, and it's also like small and mid-sized businesses that are, $5 to $50 million in revenue. But what I'm finding is a lot of these executives they're living two worlds just like I am, right? Like I'm a squiggly smoking MF on one side, and I'm, have to, like, I guess I haven't really worn a collared shirt in years at this point, but in these meetings, everybody else is. And these executives are living two worlds too. It's just not quite as disparate. So when they're in the office, they're trying to take very careful, methodical, measured steps in how should our business have a point of view on Web3. But at night and on weekends, they're taking a half step. They're right up against that dam. They're walking across the dam, looking into the Gulf of Mexico, going, ooh, what's going on over here? And they're trying to make more aggressive plays as side hustles or as career transitions. So that
yeah,
caused me to
buying
go,
apes and
whoa,
shit.
there's actually a lot of people trying to do a lot of stuff. And so, building the right team and choosing the right path is something that I don't want to go too quick with.
I'm excited. I want my best friend to be AI. I would love to wake up in the morning and talk to my fucking everything, and have it talk back to me in a cognizant way.
They're building it, dude. It's being built right now. I think there's probably stuff in production we could use. They're actually
I
this
can't wait.
Netflix show, the future of this Netflix show. You should definitely watch it. They're talking about like in physical therapy, like athlete recovery type of stuff, right? This company is making their best effort to create an identical twin of you digitally for the purposes of athlete recovery.
Training.
Because if they know your body and how it reacts to everything, then they can, let's say you blow a knee out, right? they can run a bunch of simulations against your physiology and figure out which of those different paths forward of recovery is going to help you the best, and then bring that recovery to you and choose the right path. Versus right now, 5 different people want to do 5 different things to help your knee recover. So they're actually creating digital twins, avatar metaverse style twins, so that they can simulate recovery processes. It's crazy. There's all sorts of shit going on that we don't even know
Bro, the
about.
world can't handle one of me.
I know. Man. It'll be infinite. Once you get a digital copy, you can mint
Oh,
10,000.
wait till I'm Boba Fett. Oh shit. That's actually really. It would just be. That's incredible. Owning medical records, another NFT thing. Like being able to literally own your medical records, walk into a doctor's office, no more paperwork, just let them borrow the NFTs they need to see for the time that you're there, and then they're yours again.
Yeah, for sure. And again, the solution providers are going to have to look at exactly how does blockchain help, right? Because there's medical records right now. There's different companies, and I know it's private and it's proprietary and it's interconnected. And I think sort of theoretically, we would just like those to be blockchain and nifties. But for that to happen, people have to really be able to simply and pointedly describe this is why it's better, not in concept, but in practice. That's pragmatic to the actual hospital, the actual doctor, to the government and to the people. And once that happens, things will go really quick.
How is it not? Like, how many people just put the wrong fucking birthday on there, and then all of a sudden it's not even going to the right insurance company? Like, you're off one digit on your social security number because you might have forgotten it or you were busy that day, and now all of a sudden you're a different person.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Like, simply, you could, like, literally, like, with your thumb or Face ID, like, give your medical records away that were done one time, and then you own everything. I would know what happened to me when I, like, hung myself on a chain link fence when I was 6. You'd literally be able to go back and be like, this was the doctor that did that. And then all of a sudden you have access to everything else that doctor ever did. You'd be able to look at medical, like, everything on a completely different level as far as, like, who's operating on me? Hold on. Like,
yeah.
It gives the power back to the people. And it gives the power to the doctor, too, to be like, no, you can go check on chain, bitch.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's there. And rather than dealing with the medical record that's owned by some company that maybe or maybe not doesn't actually give a shit about you.
Yeah. That makes me wonder, too, if there's going to be a layer of protocols or businesses that come out that are focused on on-chain data integrity. So, for example, if we're relying on the nifty of that doctor's work history to determine whether or not I want to have him do my surgery, I need to make sure that there's not a chance that data that got inputted is false, right? So correct. All of a sudden, if we're relying on it to be accurate, then there's going to have to be some data integrity audits.
There's going to need to be quite the oracle made for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it. It's like with that, trustlessness. And that's where I think, like, Gavin kind of has it right with like what he's building out on a trustless. It needs to be trustless. Mm-hmm. I need to be able to trust you and you trust me in order for business to get done.
Right.
And right now, like, that trust is in the hands of many, many other people as an in-between between you and I on that trust.
Right.
So now it's like a million other people need to be trusted just for us to be able to trust each other. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And once people can really start to wrap their head around that, we can understand why it is that I want to own my medical records and my passport.
Right.
On an NFT rather than it's currently in my holster. And if I leave the country, like, I'm scared to death I'm going to lose my passport. But depending on what country I'm in, of course, what kind of American embassy are we talking about here? Like, like, once that all clicked for me, it was like, it has to go there. I don't know one person that I talk to that I'm going to have that conversation with about their medical records or their passport and have them be like, that's a stupid idea.
Right.
Not one.
Right.
But then again, like, there's not one person that it's actually like, if you talk to anybody realistically, they're going to be like, who's flipping that bill?
It's a big part of it.
Who's going to pay for all of those medical records to now become what, fucking digitized? And
Yep.
I'm like, no, of course it's not something we can do for us, but my kids are 6 years old. If I could start getting their medical records on tap now, okay, now
Right.
we're talking. Like, let's stop thinking about like what's it do for me, and let's actually start thinking about like a generation moving forward to be like, oh, like we could, like all these medical records could be NFTs immediately right now because all these idiots are all punching all this shit in on a Windows computer somewhere.
Yeah.
What do they care if they're making an NFT every time or not?
True.
As long as we can go in and fix the NFT that some dummy fucking mistyped.
True. Yeah.
I mean, but we can do that now. They have like what's called the ERC 721A, from what I understand. I can do some crazy shit with 1155s, man. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll all evolve too. Yeah. It
But
is interesting because like kind of the point we were at earlier is each 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 person really, each individual, each entity, company, team, everything, they have objectives, right? And they're going to try to accomplish those objectives. And if those objectives are, if there's enough motivation behind it, whether that's their own motivation or the motivation of their customers or clients, they're going to use whatever means necessary, to accomplish those motivations.
right.
And I think more people are realizing that blockchain technology and cryptocurrency help them with achieve those objectives.
Yeah. Like on a whole new level that no one could even conceptualize until blockchain technology.
Mm-hmm.
Really until like smart contracts. Bitcoin was cool and all. I mean, Bitcoin's fun. It's money, I guess, in a sense. It's a store of value as far as I'm concerned. But like smart contracts, wow, man, it makes things really cool
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
a facet of levels. Facet of levels that I people that need them don't even want them.
Right, right.
Blows
Yeah,
my
that's wild.
mind. It's wild. Dude, I think you have to be done at 3, don't you?
Yeah, I probably should wrap up in a bit here.
I mean, we've been going for 3 hours, man. I can't believe. Like I'm excited now to go through it to like have to write down all the time slots to be like, okay, now go back and edit it.
You're gonna
This
end
has
up with
been
a series. You're gonna have a series instead of an episode.
yeah. I think I might have to have like a couple excerpts of like what we talked about because we really did travel down more roads than I even thought we could. Dude, this has been one of the best conversations I've had in Web3,
Me too, man. It's been
and I
fun.
recorded it this time.
There you go. Yeah, exactly, exactly. See, now you
Those
got a
other ones.
three episode series, and you got to figure out how to tell the one big story with the three chapters in it.